Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another round of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 5, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today, we mark round number 8 of the 13-round calendar, where the fact our drivers have made their way back to the United Kingdom to conclude the series tour of the European continent, and we are at none other than the British circuit, the heart of British motorsport, known as Donington Park. This circuit, of course, steeped in history, with many a major series racing at this circuit, including but not limited to Formula 1 and also the British GT Championship, or if you want something a little bit more modern and relevant to our touring car series, of course it is British Touring Car Championship, while the opening rounds of the 2022 calendar taking place at this circuit, albeit at the shorter national variant. However, our drivers today will be taking on the full Grand Prix loop, and we'll tell you a little bit more specifically about the circuit in a short order, but it is the case that before we come onto the circuit and all the details and intricacies in between, we should take you through our schedule for tonight. Times in British summertime, that's BST or UTC +1. It will be the case in just under 14 minutes time. We will be building up for the qualifying session. 15 minutes of action, while drivers will be making their way around the circuit to set the best possible time in order to set themselves up well for the first of our 3 sprint races. For this is a sprint race round, and it is the case of 3 races on the schedule, the first of which is Sprint Heat 1 at 8 o'clock, and that will be a 15-minute race. And indeed, across all these races, the strategy is get to the front of the field and run away to try and get the best possible points. And as we conclude Sprint Heat 1, we'll transition straight over to our second sprint race, that's Sprint Heat 2, which will kick off at approximately 20 past 8, another 15-minute race, albeit with a reversed grid for the top 4, and then it will be the case that we take a brief breather before returning for our third and final sprint race of the evening at 8:45, and that will be the sprint feature. We'll double the time distance from 15 minutes to 30 minutes, no pit stop expected of course, but it is the case there that some of our drivers may feel as though the time management becomes ever more critical, and those tyres may just end up falling off the cliff, and that can make the difference between success or failure for some, or in terms of the points they pick up in the championship. The 3 action-packed races on the schedule, and it is the case that we have to remind you this is a post-round broadcast where all the racing action occurred on what was Monday the 29th of August, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live today as of September the 4th, 2022, and well, it is the case that I, as your host and commentator, do not know what happens, so of course we do ask if you're in the Twitch or the YouTube chats, do not spoil things for our viewers, indeed for me as your host and commentator. Now, who am I? My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and it is the case I'll be bringing you all of your racing action tonight and for the remainder of the season, and indeed the broadcast as always being brought to you both on what is YouTube. At youtube.com you can go to TX141TX or Paul Walsh on YouTube. Alternatively, if you're more inclined to use Twitch, you can always go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in there. Here's the case. Speaking of tuning in, let's tune into that calendar or the season so far and what is to come. And it is the case, of course, that as we make our way into round number 8, we've moved beyond the halfway point of our season, and it is Donington Park today. As we mentioned earlier, the race is happening on the 29th of August. After today, we'll be making our way to South America for the Brazilian circuit of Interlagos for the feature race round, before we have our mid-season break after round number 9, and then we'll be back for what is the final 4 rounds. The final sprint race round at Mosport, the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, as it's known in full, and then we'll have 2 feature race rounds of Mid-Ohio and Watkins Glen in the United States of America, before we wrap things up in the United States as well with Road Atlanta in the special round. And of course you can tell the difference between the rounds of the fact those in yellow represent sprint rounds still to come, those in blue represent alpha rounds or feature race rounds that are still to come, and then our pink purple round at Road Atlanta is the special round, denoted by that colour, and the details of which will be confirmed much closer to the date. But whilst we still have plenty of rounds of racing action to go, the emphasis is now turned a little bit more on that championship-esque focus for our drivers, and it is the case that the 7 rounds we had so far, we of course started off back on the 11th of July at Belle Isle in Detroit, and what a season opener there it was with that feature race round, seeing plenty of action at the street circuit. But it was the case that whilst our opening alpha round had plenty of action, Laguna Seca, which was our follow-up and indeed our opening sprint race round, well, that had just as much action as well, and that was on the 18th of July. But then we made our way from the United States over to Japan for Fuji Speedway, and there we saw a different tone of racing compared to the street circuit of Belle Isle in our second feature or alpha race round, in the fact that Fuji Speedway, the action was still there, but there was the emphasis, of course, on the slipstream down the straightway. But we saw plenty of battles into turn number 1, and that only continued at Alton Park on the 1st of August in the 3 sprint races there, and we were at Monza on the 8th of August in Italy, the first of our 2 visits to Italy. It was the case the Monza circuit definitely full of drama, some major incidents, but not what we expected the incidents to occur. It must be said, we had a very clean lap 1. It was lap lap number 2 where it all kicked off, and then we made our way to Austria for the Red Bull Ring National Circuit, and a lot of drivers and indeed spectators were wondering whether the shorter National Circuit would generate fantastic racing action. It certainly did on the 15th of August, and some of you may recall we did see a 2 3x3 wide situations going into turn number 1. It must admit, it gave me a heart attack and then some, and last time out, of course, we were back in Italy for the Imola circuit for a feature race round, and there, whilst we had a slightly smaller grid compared to what we used to, it was a case that whilst we lacked the quantity of drivers, we didn't lack the quality of the racing, and Donington Park today, with 21 drivers in attendance, is sure to only highlight the quality of the racing ever so more. But it is the case as we look from our calendar and speak about Donington Park. Well, let's take you through the Donington Park circuit, the Grand Prix variant. Of course, this circuit based in Leicestershire, in England, the United Kingdom. The circuit being located very close to Castle Donington. And as we can see from the circuit map provided to us by simracingwiki.com, this circuit is made up of 12 corners and takes a very specific tone, which is about apex speed. This circuit has a huge number of sweepers from turns 1 all the way through to turn 8. Of course, Redgate corner running all the way through the Craner curves of 2 and 3 downhill in towards the old hairpin at turn number 4. The first major braking zone being at turn 1 and then followed up at turn 4. And then we have the charge under Starkey's Bridge through turns 5 and 6 before heading up into McLean's. And turns 7 and 8 in particular, McLean's and Coppice, 2 corners with very late apexes and effectively blind apexes where you're braking for a corner you cannot see the apex of until you've transitioned into the corner in terms of putting the steering wheel input in. And Coppice emphasises that even more with a major undulation whereby drivers are driving uphill and braking at the top of the rise into a corner they can't actually see until they've gone on the brakes. That's what makes Coppice such a tricky corner, and if they master that, they'll be running all the way down the back straight down towards the S's of turns 9 and 10, the chicane if you will, while drivers will look to straight line that as much as possible before charging down to the penultimate corner in the Melbourne hairpin, a very wide corner in terms of the braking zone available, and we can expect plenty of moments while drivers try to go too wide, and it is the run up towards Goddard's at turn number 12, another hairpin to complete the lap. But the difference between Melbourne and Goddard's is that Goddard's is a downhill hairpin. It is the case you're braking into a downhill apex, and on top of that, as you make your way out of the corner is slightly slanted away from the apex, so a bit of road camber there, which can unsettle the car, and particularly in these touring car machines, it can lead to a little bit of understeer being invoked as well when they try to get on the power as aggressively as possible. But of course, a picture may speak 1,000 words, but it doesn't quite tell you the full story here, and when we ride on board in qualifying, we'll give you an exact replication of what a lap of the circuit is like in the hands of our very capable drivers. But in the meantime, whilst they're getting ready to go qualifying, it is the case, so let's take you through those race rules. It is the case that for tonight, our setups, we'll see our drivers with open setups. This is an open setup series, of course. Our drivers are allowed to make changes to the car within the iRacing balance and performance model. And it is the case that car fuel loads have been restricted to 39 litres for this round, meaning that our drivers have plenty of fuel to get to the end of each of the races unscathed on fuel capacity. In terms of the sprint race rules specifically, no pit stops are expected in any of the 3 races, unless, of course, the driver has picked up damage and they decide to repair it. The grid for race number 2 shall be a top 4 reverse of race 1's results. So it is the case the winner of race number 1 will start P4 in race number 2. Meanwhile, the driver who finishes P5 in race number 1, well, they'll be starting 5th on the grid for the purposes of race number 2. And the grid for race number 3 shall be a top 8 reverse of race 2's results. So just to explain that to make it clear, the winner of race number 2 will be starting P8. The 8th place finisher in race number 2 will be starting on pole, and here's the case 9th downwards will be starting where they finished in race number 2. And a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty in any of these races should they accumulate 9 or more instant points. They'll be disqualified if they accumulate 16 or more instant points, and the following bonus points are available. 1 point for pole position in qualifying, that's overall pole position. 1 point for the fastest lap over all of the races, so it will be the case that our stewards will take a look at the lap time set over the course of all 3 races, and whoever set the fastest lap over all of the races combined will end up picking up that extra point. There's also a point for the Sublime Finesse Award, which is the fewest instance over the entirety of the round, so in qualifying and the races put together. 1 point for leading a lap in a given race, and 1 point for the Naked Aggression Award, most overtakes over the entirety of the round. Now, it is the case, of course, whilst our stewards are busy at work, they have got to still make some updates to the standings. So whilst we're not going to have any post-round standings today, we can definitely give you an update on the championship standings as they currently stand going into tonight. And we take a look firstly at the Drivers' Championship. And we can see here, after 7 rounds, it is Robert Abrams who leads 51 points clear of John Lauzon. But John Lauzon last time out at Imola, of course, picking up that sensational win. And it is the case that Lauzon now closing the gap and jumping into that P2 position ahead of teammate Francois Schink on 329 points there. And the rivalry for the top position right now is ever intensifying, with Robert Abrams really having to dig deep at Imola in order to pull off a result, and not the result he necessarily wanted, although it was a major battle for Robert Abrams. And to be fair, showing that when he's not got the car that's got got the pace, he's still going to try and pick up the places. But John Lauzon and Francois Schinck trying to close the delta. Let's not count out David Bauer either, who was very unfortunate to miss out on the win at Imola with that drive-through penalty at the very late stage. And Bauer on 278 points. It is the case there. Well, I think there's been a bit of a miscalculation in the points accrual there, but it is the case. He is ahead of Logan McKenzie. We don't exactly know how many points he's ahead, and our apologies for that, but he is ahead of Logan McKenzie there. McKenzie in P5, and then we do have James Carr in P6. And of course, the thing about Logan McKenzie and James Carr, both drivers showing great performances at Imola, particularly McKenzie, really a lot of fighting spirit there, and we look forward to seeing more from the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver tonight. Joan Virgilas in P7 now, 245 points, clear of Daniel Smith, Matthew Shepka and Micah Hendricks, and you can see their P8 to P10 separated by only 2 points. Outside of the top 10, we have Connor Achatella there on 202 points. What is the Delta driver putting in stellar performances, our leading Delta driver as it currently stands. Of course, all of our drivers mentioned up to and before Achatella being Alpha drivers, so they are our Pro drivers. Achatella being our AM driver, or our Pro AM driver, if you will. And it is the case there. We see Gurkan Demir in P12 and 182 points, breaking away from Justin Rhodes with Daniel Sedino and Aaron Lahr completing the top 15. And then we do have August Blondel, Adrian Fedorowski, Giovanni Romano, Travis Hoare and Eric Statzer completing the top 20. Outside that top 20, but not to be forgotten about, we do have Wiley Cox in P21 on 62 points. Having a bit of a bad run of form recently, and we're looking forward to seeing if he can bounce back as the season heads for its second half. Corey Fluke in P22, one of a limited number of Audi drivers there, and he has a 4-point advantage over Michael McLeod. Fernando Takahashi, our other Audi driver there, continues to go from strength to strength on 49 points. 3 clear of Jesse Bodas in P25, and then we have Dom Savio, Alex Jensen, Spencer Cockayne, Casey Nemetz, and Jonathan Stroll completing the top 30. And then outside the top 30, we have Paul Mikolajczyk on 22 points there, 2 clear of Scotty Lunn, who is in P32, and then we do have Brandon Vers, Sean Kurd, Steve Hansel, and Jorge Zuniga completing the driver championship standings. But as we go from the drivers to the team standings, it is the case that Beaver Buzz continue to lead on 737 points, and they are trying to break away from Yellow Flag Motorsports right now after taking the lead in the team's championship. It is the case they are not relenting and trying to keep that gap, but look out for Breakfast for Dinner there in P3 on 620 points, starting to break away from Torque Steer Racing, and we wouldn't be surprised if Breakfast for Dinner close the gap a little bit more to Yellow Flag Motorsports tonight. Torque Steer Racing, the best of the rest in P4, trying to find their way back into the top 3 fight with Blue Flag Motorsports 375 points in P5, and then QZ Motorsports and Gasparilla Motorsport completing the team championship standings. But as we come from the standings then, we head back to the circuit, and indeed as all of our drivers are getting themselves set right now, it is the case that we do have a little bit of good news for you. In fact, we have 2 bits of good news. The first bit of good news, and whilst he's not currently out on the circuit or down in the pit lane, we will introduce him in qualifying. We do have a new driver joining in the Delta class tonight, and that is Jermaine Warren from Middle of the Pack Racing League. He'll be represented as a privateer, as we're to understand it, a Delta driver in the Honda Civic Type R. And also secondly, it is the case we have found a way to be able to give you that qualifying session you've always wanted, in terms of the fact we do not see the drivers' lap times immediately. Instead, we will be seeing the lap times as they come in. It is the case that we have found a little bit of a workaround, and well, to be able to do that, we will shortly have to go away briefly. We'll go away to the Be Right Back screen, and then we will be back with the qualifying session a minute or 2 later. But we have found a workaround, so that means that you can have that qualifying session as you always wanted, where we don't know the drivers' lap times until they cross the line, and it gives us a little bit more suspense all the way to the finish. But speaking of suspense, here is the case that Micah Hendricks has made the switch to the Audi RS3, and we're a very interesting switcher car there for the Blue Flag Motorsports driver. And of course, it is the case now that we are over halfway through the season, a number of drivers opting to use that car swap at the midway point in order to see what else they can extract out the car. And Micah Hendricks going from the Hyundai Veloster, which he looked very comfortable in, to be fair, to the Audi RS3. And I wonder if this is a bit of a gamble for Hendricks in the 473 machine. We'll have to wait and find out. But meanwhile, as we see Hendricks making his way on down the hill, we also do have Matt Shepka, who is running the Honda Civic Type R for Torque Steer Racing once again. And his livery, that new livery on the car there, the red and yellow amber livery, as he makes his way down to the old hairpin, looking smart. And also one of the big changes, we do have Robert Abrams, who's made the switch to the Hyundai Veloster from the Elantra. That Elantra not favouring him over the last couple of rounds. Those are 2 major changes that we've heard about. There may also be some other more thrown into the mix, but it is the case now that as our drivers head towards the end of this final practice session, we'll be back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, to make our way into qualifying. We just need to implement that workaround, so that way we can get those qualifying times removed, and therefore we have the qualifying session as we want it to be. We'll be back within the next minute. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are now in qualifying, and as all of our drivers make their way out the pit lane, you'll see on the timing towel there, unlike the previous sprint race round broadcast in particular, it is the case we do not have any times listed. As I say, we found a workaround, and therefore those times will come in as they naturally should as our drivers put in the laps. But as our drivers get set to put in their laps around the Donington Park circuit, we do look to the restream chat here, and it is the case we're using the restream service, of course, to be able to stream on multiple platforms, and that means we can see both the YouTube and also the Twitch chats. And we say hello there to Rob Abrams, also to Labmob, that's Connor Achatella, and also to Jambath, Yambath I should say, in the YouTube chat there. Hope you're all doing well, and to those of you who haven't put a message into the chat, don't be shy, feel free to say hi. We hope you're all having a great weekend, whether it be Sunday. The weekend's coming to an end, but it is the case we can bring your weekend to the end with some fantastic racing action, and well, it's great to see you all tuning in. But as our drivers make their way around right now, they'll be tuning in those lap lines. They'll be looking to do their utmost here. This is a tricky circuit to get spot on and deliver that ultimate time. But as they make their way around, it is the case. All of our drivers set and looking strong. As we do see here, Paul Mikolajczyk making his way down through the crane of curves here, completely flat out and flashes lights as he makes his way down the hill. I think just making sure all the electronics are working on the car is a Hyundai Elantra driver. But as he heads on through and up underneath Starkey's Bridge here, we do look a little bit further up the order, and particularly our drivers making their way all the way through towards Goddard's very shortly. And it is the case here. We can see we've got Matthew Shepka being right up behind what is there. I do believe that is Rob Abrams, and in front of them we do have, unless I'm mistaken, that is going to be David Bowen going on to a lap. And well, let's jump on board with David Bowen as he takes us around for the first line lap of this qualifying session. Making his way up towards turn number 1 here, looking for his brake marker, which will be the end of the pit exit line. And as he rolls his way into Red Gate corner here, nice late apex before coming out to the right-hander and now flat out down the hill through turns 2 and 3. Through the right-hander too, the first part of the crane occurs, and you can't see turn 3 right now, and then suddenly it's upon you there. You have to turn into it blind before he breaks his way into the old hairpin here. 50 metres on the corner as he rolls his way on through, bringing the car nicely through the right-hand sweeper. Now under Starkey's Bridge at turn number 5, flat out here for the first left-hander, and then heading in towards turn number 6. Through left-hander here, and watch how he's got to straighten the steering wheel immediately as he clears the corner to break into McLean's at turn 7. Nice late apex there, using plenty of apex curve to rotate the car, and as he now heads up towards Coffey's corner, onto the brakes as late as he dares so he can see a bit of the corner, braking about 30 metres from corner apex, and then rolling on out here through the right-hand apex corner as he now heads up towards what is the S's. Now charging down the back straight here, he can take a brief breather before the circuit now transitions from what is sweeping corners to heavy braking zones. He makes his way into the S's, braking 50 metres from the chicane, straight line between turns 9 and 10, avoiding the bollards there, and now making his way down towards Melbourne hairpin, looking for his left-hand side here for his 100-metre board marker, and he gets on the brakes, coming all the way down the gearbox to first gear, the slowest corner on the circuit, and as he exits on out here, now building up the speed once again in the Elantra, heading up towards Goddard's, and as he makes his way towards turn number 12, bringing the car over to the right-hand side, on the brakes he goes, and rolling the car in here in first gear, and getting on the throttle nice and early, using the camber of the road to rotate the car around. And as he gets to the timeline here, that will be our first lap on the board, and what it be from David Bowen, it is a 37.43, and how will everybody else respond as those initial lap times come in? We can see Francois Schink, they're going for a 37.680, and we do see Daniel Smith getting quite close to 37.883 in what is the Hyundai Veloster. But as they all continue to come across the line here, we've got a few more drivers making their way towards the end of the laps, but David Bowen definitely setting the pace straight away there with that 37.426, and it is the case the closest so far is Schink, who is 2.5 tenths behind, as we see Takahashi here coming to the timeline, one of our Audi drivers, and as he crosses the line, what's it going to be for Takahashi? Oh, I think it may be an invalidated lap. In fact, it has not registered, and that would be the sign that he's invalidated the lap somewhere and picked up what would be a 1X, as we like to refer to in iRacing, for going off track. And it's quite easy to pick up an instant here in the fact that you are encouraged to take a lot of speed through these corners, and as you do, you can run a little bit wide and trigger that instant point. But it is the case without instant. We cut over to our Honda Civic Type R driver, our newcomer here of Jermaine Warren, and it is the case our new Delta driver here joining our Pro-Am class. Of course, the Delta class being introduced for Season 5 in the AlphaTauri Challenge. With the fact, how can you tell the difference? As it is the case there, Jermaine Warren on cold tyres, just going a little bit for a rallycross line there on the exit of the old hairpin, but bringing the car gently. In fact, he's going to park it up and go for a new set of tyres. Understandable there. But how can you tell who's part of the Delta or the Pro-Am class versus what is the Pro class, or what we like to refer to as the Alphas? It is the case, if you look in the time tell on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll notice notice there that some of our drivers have a blue sash against their name, and that will mean that they are a pro or an alpha, and meanwhile our drivers with the purple pink sash, those are our deltas, if you will, or our pro amps. That's how you distinguish the two. But it is the case there is only one single point scoring mechanism or championship table in this series. It is the case that our deltas are competing versus the alphas. There's no separate championships in that single drivers championship standings. They're all encouraged to battle one another as much as possible, and that's why we do typically see our deltas really taking the fight to our alphas, and none more so than Connor Achatella, who wasn't in attendance last time out. At Imola, it was the case he wasn't able to make it, but it is the case he's come back when fighting spirit. Right now, P5 on what is an absolutely brilliant 37.79, and he's jumped back to the pits as we do look here to Gurkan Demir, making his way down through the crane of curves right now. Here's the alpha driver heading into turn number 4, and as he rolls his way through the old hairpin there, you can see those brake discs glowing red hot at the rear of that Hyundai Elantra. That shows you how much brake bias he's running towards the rear, and it is the case, of course, our Elantra drivers looking for a brake bias that's very rear loaded in the region, sometimes all the way down to about 40%, depending on driver preference, because they want that rear to slide round under braking and give them the rotation. As Demir makes his way up into Coppice corner, it is the case that we have seen the driver from Talksteer Racing have these moments where things really do work out for him, and other times where it hasn't quite worked out, but he's definitely on the pace today. And like him, it is the case his teammate here of Matt Shepka, currently P5, and right now delivering very well in this qualifying session. It does feel as though ever since Imola, it is the case that Shepka has really found a new step in his pace. He stepped things up quite nicely. He was having some difficulty with the Honda Civic and indeed trying to get the most out of the car, but right now P5 in this qualifying session with just over half of it to go, it does seem as though the 490 driver is really started to enjoy the car and gets him right into the rhythm as he comes to the timeline. Does he improve this time around? Currently 6 tenths wholly down on David Bauer, who has gone faster to what is a 37.184, but no improvement for Shepka. Indeed, many not improving at the moment in this qualifying session, although I say that, and Daniel Smith then bucks the trend by going a bit faster to a 37.740, but look at that from Logan McKenzie, going 800ths faster than David Bauer. And we said at Imola, McKenzie looked very different in the cockpit of that Elantra. He just looks so much happier and more fluid in the car, and it's showing. It is the case that he is putting another strong lap here to really set the tone in this qualifying session at Donington Park, and I would not be surprised if Bowers now really got to respond. But as soon as I say that, James Carr now goes faster, and breakfast for dinner here, well, it is the case that sometimes they say you can't have your cake and eat it. Well, for breakfast for dinner, it is the case they're going to have their breakfast for dinner, and they are going to eat those pole position points for this qualifying session, because right now James Carr with a 36.656, 4.5 tenths faster than Logan McKenzie, and absolutely raising the bar in this session. I think he will be rubbing his hands together when he's on a straightaway with regards to feeling that as though that is a qualifying session well done, albeit it's not over yet. Of course, we've still got plenty of time. We've still got on the clock 7 minutes, and anything can happen in those final 7 minutes of qualifying, as we do see James Carr rolling his way out of turn number 7 and up towards Coppice here, but looking a bit further down, looking from our Alpha driver to our Delta driver of Eric Statzer here. Statzer right now looking quite good in this qualifying session, it must be said, as he makes his way out of Coppice. As we see Bauer there goes up to P2 with 37.069, getting ahead of McKenzie, but only by 300, so nobody able to touch the 36s other than James Carr right now. But Statzer's an important figure here in the fact that we normally see when Anchetilla's been at the circuit, he's had qualifying to himself in the Deltas, but Statzer does seem to be going a bit stronger. Now, the question, of course, is, for those of you tuning in, we do have 4 touring cars available. We have the 2 Hyundais, always the Elantra and also the Veloster. We also have the Honda Civic Type R, and we have the Audi RS3. What's the expectation based on the iRacing balance of performance as it currently stands? It's due for an update very soon, of course, with the current season of iRacing's content in 2022 coming to an end. It will be the case that new content and updates are coming. In terms of the balance of performance, we're expecting the Honda here to be very strong in the race, given the fact that this circuit is quite punishing to brakes and tyres in general, regardless of temperature. However, we are expecting the Hyundais to really have the pace around this circuit. This circuit does very well for the Hyundai Elantra and also the Veloster, both in qualifying and also the race for the most part. The sprint feature is going to be the interesting race for the Hyundais, for the simple reason that they are known to have quite weak tyre wear, particularly when the circuit's hot, and that means that we can only see the Elantras fall off the pace quite rapidly, and the Velosters fall off a little bit after as well. But the Honda Civic should be a little bit of the unknown, and the Audi does not typically go go that strong here at Donington from what we've seen in the past in the official iRacing series and other series that run at this circuit as well. But right now, stats are definitely doing well to keep within a tenth and so of Achatella as he rolls his way into turn number 8. As he makes his way out of Coppice, this time the 789 driver looking to improve a little bit more. But as we look from him to Dom Savio here, it is the case making his way up through Starkeys and up towards McLean's very shortly. And we can see Frenswell Shink they're going up to P6 on the time of a 37.450, jumping ahead of Abrams and Shepka. It is the case there's still quite a bit back and forth, particularly inside the top 10. Things have stabilised a little bit outside the top 10 at the moment, but I think a lot of drivers are really struggling to find that time because this circuit is quite a hot circuit right now, it must be said. And as they make the way around, of course, you only really get one lap before those tyres start to fall out of the operating window for the ultimate qualifying lap, because of course you want to give it everything. But John Lauzon is the second driver to enter the 36s. In this case, we'll look to Lauzon here as he goes on to another lap. He's just set a 36.998 as he rolls his way through turn number 1 at Redgate corner, and as he does, he's still got more time to go as he heads on down the hill there. And we do see a little bit of a disconnection there, a little bit of latency issues. Hopefully those do not resurge and therefore potentially cause him to have to retire at some point in the proceedings tonight. He won't want that, and we definitely won't want that, as he makes his way out to turn number 4 and heads on through. But as he does, we look to Dom Savio here, making his way out of the final corner. Is he able to improve this time as he comes to line? I don't think he's improving on this lap, and he comes to that timeline. Indeed, it's not an improvement. He's got another lap to do, but as he heads on through, we do look from him, and we can see coming out the pit lane there, that is Robert Abrams in the Veloster for Yellow Flag Motorsports, making the change from the Elantra, and he's decided to take that gamble to go to the Veloster, and perhaps it will be a worthy gamble here, given the fact that he does seem to have fallen out of love with the Elantra in the last couple of rounds. The car just has not been giving him the pace he has wanted. But as he makes his way on down the hill here, charging on through, it is the case that we do look from him to Statzer, once again chasing after Mikolajczyk there as they make the way down towards what is turn number 9, and as they roll the way into left into right, it is the case heading on through the S, is getting himself set up as nicely as possible. And well, we'll very shortly be riding on board with the Delta driver in the Honda suit to give you a different flavour of lap around here at Donington. You'll see a car that's quite different in its setup by comparison with the Elantra, given the fact the Elantra's got a lot of speed down the straight, whereas it is the case the Honda makes it all up in the corners, in the braking zones. And as he heads around into the final corner here, we jump on board with Statzer as he takes us around for another flying lap of the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. He's going a bit deep on the exit there at the final corner to give himself a longer run down towards turn number 1. It is the case of making his way all the way up to turn 1 here, doing a little bit of a bob and weave there, I think, just trying to get a bit of temperature in the tyres as he rolls his way into Redgate corner, coming all the way down to second gear and bringing it nicely to the apex curve there and bringing it out to the corner and now in towards the Craner curves. We do see Nikolajczyk there getting it a bit wrong and taken to the grass, and will get it a bit wrong himself there. Stats, I think it was a bit off put by the way with the Elantra in front, but he does find the Craner curves in the end, and as he rolls his way into the old hairpin, a bit of a distracted lap this one so far, but as he heads out of 4 and now under Starkey's Bridge into 5 here, taking a nice wide sweeping line. I think he feels there's a bit of understeer in the car at the moment, trying to get the car to rotate in as he heads through 6, now braking into McLean's at 7, rolling the car into the right hander, plenty of rotation in the car, but he pulls over here and he backs out. He's got, I think, more drivers coming on through, and he's not happy with that lap. Well, that's unfortunate for him, given the fact he has not got long left in this qualifying session, sub 2 minutes to go, and we do see Shep here coming across that timeline. Is he able to improve? No, he's not able to at this moment. So right now it is looking as though it is going to be James Carr who's going to take that pole position, albeit we still got a bit of time to go, but the Breakfast for Dinner driver has set an incredibly high bar in this qualifying session, a 36.656 over 3.5 tenths, almost clear of John Lauzon. And right now only 2 drivers in the 36s, everybody else in the 37s or higher, and it is the case that it is a very tight run from P3 all the way to what is P14, in the fact that we have a whole second separating P3 to P14, so 13 drivers in that medley of a second. It is the case they are so closely packed together, and anybody can score a major lap and jump a number of places. And well, as we watch here, James Carr coming to the end of his current lap. He was faster in subsector 1, wasn't as strong in subsectors 2 and 3, but what about in subsector 4 as he comes to the line? Is he going to be able to improve this time? No, it's the case he's nowhere near his previous best there, and I don't think he has to go far to raise the bar anymore, given the fact that it does not seem to be the case that anybody can get remotely close here. And I think James Carr jumping to the pit lane, he feels pretty secure in what he's been able to achieve. But right now, Achatella not feeling comfortable with that lap. And in fact, as we see Daniel Smith improving there, Achatella bails the lap. He's decided enough's enough. And Will Smith comes across the line and jumps to P10 with that 37.646 and decides to take his way to the gravel and a whack to the wall there. He's all done and dusted as we see it. Dom Savio here rolling his way through the old hairpin as the clock is about to strike 15 minutes. Is anybody else on a personal best and improving lap at the moment? We can't see anything along the lines, and in fact, with the clock striking 15 minutes, that is qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. The laps are immediately stopped, and now we get ready to go racing. So let's take you through that grid for the purposes of race number 1. So as they line up then for what is race number 1 of the sprint round in round 8 of the AlphaTouring Challenge Season 5, brought to you at Donington Park, it is James Carr who lines up on pole position for breakfast for dinner in the end, taking pole by over 3 tenths ahead of John Lauzon in P2 from Beaver Buzz. Behind them we have breakfast for dinner's David Bauer being joined by Logan McKenzie from Yellow Flag Motorsports on the second row. Then Robert Abrams, the other Yellow Flag Motorsports driver in this grid, line up P5, joined by Jerome Bajulaz from Beaver Buzz on the third row. Francois Schenk from Beaver Buzz on row number 4, P7, joined by Daniel Smith from Torque Racing. He lines up P8. And then we do have Connor Achatella, our pole position driver in the Delta class. The privateer then line up P9, joined by Micah Hendricks from Blue Flag Motorsports, who have made the switch to the Audi. Hasn't quite worked out in this qualifying session. Perhaps he can find it in the race. Matt Shepka starts off our 6th row in P11 for Torque Racing in the Honda, joined by Eric Statzer, our Delta driver in P12. And then behind them we do have what is Dom Savio, P13. He starts off row number 7, joined by Aaron Lahr in P14. And then we have a Gus Blondell, joined by Gurkan Demir on our 8th row. Paul Mikolajczyk on P17, joined by Spencer Cockayne P18. Jesse Bodas and Fernando Takahashi on row 10. And then Jermaine Warren on our last but not least row of row number 11. P21 is the debutant today as we now get ready for the lights. As we do wait, we just have 1 or 2 drivers to join the grid. In fact, 1 driver remains now. It's our pole sitter of James Carr, but all of our drivers absolutely itching to go. And when James Carr puts himself in the grid position, we'll then get the 5 red lights before we go green. And now we await the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 1 here at Donington Park in round 8 of the AlphaTouring Challenge Season 5 as James Carr gets a good start. But look at David Bauer here trying to get in amongst the fight for the lead as they make the way into Red Gate Corner. All 3 drivers roll the way on through, and as they head on through turn number 1 here, it is the case we've got a couple of drivers going a little bit wide. That's common at Red Gate, but as they come down the hill here, it is the case looking a bit further back. Everyone heading to the crane of curves. We've got a bit of contact further ahead, and that looks to be multiple drivers, and John Lauzon in particular being picked up there in that instant. And oh goodness me, we've got one of the breakfasts of the dinner machines right in the middle of the road. Aaron Lahr's been caught out by that. Fernando Takahashi as well. Jesse Boda's involved in the mix. It is multiple drivers in a major whack down through the crane of curves. And my goodness, it's the case it has not worked out for a number. Jermaine Warren has just simply cruised on by all this. It's the same for Paul Mikolajczyk. It's the case he had a very slow start in Mikolajczyk. He really stalled on the grid, but I think that's been to his success, the fact he's avoided all the contact. But to give you an idea of who was involved in that, we've got 6 drivers who've jumped to the pits. That is Dom Savio, Aaron Lahr, Fernando Takahashi, David Bauer, Logan McKenzie and Matt Shepka. And those are the 6 drivers who have jumped to the pits. There were plenty more involved in that contact, but the driver who was not involved in it, he was ahead of it when it all kicked off. James Carr just running away with proceedings here at the front of the field with Robert Abrams behind in P2 as they charge on down towards Melbourne and head into the braking zone for turn number 11. But whilst our top 2 here are breaking away, it is the case the hunt for what is P3 is only intensifying here with Daniel Smith, having gained 5 places since the start, making his way through the medley through the crane of curves. It is the case now he's trying to break away, but as he heads up towards Goddard's here, it is the case rolling to the end of lap number 1. They've got quite a distance to go over these 15 minutes and as they head on out. Daniel Smith definitely under major pressure here from Micah Hendricks. Meanwhile, we see here it is the case that Jesse Boda's being passed up the inside by Connor Achatella into the final corner as they head onto the next lap, and the Delta Delta class really shaken up as well with the fact I do believe that Achitella picked up some damage in that run through the Craner curves alongside what was, I believe as well, Jesse Bodas. But in return, Eric Statzer is now your Delta leader as they head on to lap number 2. And my goodness, how it has gone so wrong for some drivers, but not wrong for others as they roll the way down the hill through where we had the incident on the previous lap. John Low's on into the pits as well. He was right at the tip of the spear with regards to being involved in that opening lap incident. I do think there might have been a bit of contact between Lowson and one of the breakfast dinner drivers, and it is the case in the end. That is what's led to everything really kicking off the way it has. But right now, that's the past, and we focused on the present as we see Spencer Cockayne being passed there by Achitella for what is P8 as they make the way up towards turn number 6. And as they roll the way over through, there's Francois Schink trying to come through versus Jesse Bodas there, and Bodas not fighting at 9. He's not in the same fight as Schink, I think, as they make the way into Coppice corner. But as they roll the way through the right-hander here of turn number 8 and head down towards the S's once again, we do say hello there to Francois Schink in the YouTube chat. Hope you're doing well, Francois. And as they make the way up towards the S's at this point, it is the case that we can see Spencer Cockayne under pressure right now. But I think the Blue Flag Motorsports driver here is not going to really fight the Beaver Buzz Energy driver too hard, given the fact that they are running to different paces, and Cockayne will be more focused on battling with Bodas behind and also Achitella in front, as we do see a slowdown there for both drivers for cutting the chicane apexes. They have to give the time back, and Paul Mikolajczyk here just simply cruising on by, and well, he may have had an absolutely abysmal start in the number 1 car on the grid, falling all the way to the back at the start, but now he's really making it count as he makes his way into the final corner once again, and he's up into P3 in the Delta class. He has gained 7 places since the start compared to his grid position, and into the pits is Spencer Cockayne, and I wonder whether that's potentially for a driver or whether there's some major damage on the car. It's damage on the car, he's having to pit, so that is a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure. But speaking of surprises here, Micah Hendricks versus Gurkin Demir, and the Audi RS3 driver has to back out there in the run down the hill, but we ride on board here with the Blue Flag Motorsports driver as he heads into the old hairpin, rolling his way through the right-hander here. 4 minutes into this race, we've still got 11 minutes to go plus the final lap, and as they head underneath Starkey's bridge here, you can see Hendricks falling back now as they make the way up the hill in towards what is turn number 7. Onto the brakes to go, and we hear in the background it is the case that Connor Achitella has found his way past Eric Statzer. Statzer getting that good start. Achitella being involved in that open lap instant, but now he's found his way on past here, as it is the case that Hendricks is falling back as they roll the way through Coppice. So you can see there Daniel Smith going very deep and just about keeping it on the road. But that's going to cost him a lot of momentum in the run down the back straight as they head up towards the S's, and as they make the way down on the braking zone very shortly, it is the case that Smith under major pressure here, and Bajulas is looking up the inside. He's gone very brave on the brakes, and he's just about brought it there, and Bajulas gets it done for P3. Now, of course, the change for him is the fact that will the drivers behind look for the move on him, or will they all just simply back one another up? Well, it is the case Gurkin Demir out the inside here, Daniel Smith. It is the case that you can go on that inside line and get a lot of ground, and as they roll the way out, Smith being caught napping there. Oh, goodness me! And, well, Smith, I don't think he realised that there was going to be the Audi and Micah Hendricks there, but Micah Hendricks sent to the wall, and, well, I think that is going to be one that's going to go to the shirts, because Hendricks right now in a car that is severely damaged. He'll be coming through the final corner, but he's going to have to come into the pits. In fact, he's going to have to jump to the pits, and that will cost him a whole lap if he does come back out onto the circuit. And that was very unfortunate for the Audi driver there. Well, it is the case that switch to the Audi has not proven provident so far, but to be fair, I don't think anybody would have expected that to happen. And as they make the way through turn number 1, let's take you through that field as it currently stands after it's 3 laps of racing and still plenty to go. So it is the case here as he makes his way up through turn number 6. We do have James Carr currently leading from pole position. That superb start and avoiding the lap 1 instant. The breakfast dinner driver breaking away 2.5 seconds clear of Robert Abrams here, the Velocity driver from Yellow Flag Motorsports, running P2, gaining 3 places at the start. Then P3, we have Jerome Bajulas here from Beaver Buzz. It is the case chasing after Abrams and Carr, but as he makes his way up towards Coppice here a little bit further down. Then we have Gurkin Demir P4, Connor Achitella P5, our Delta leader as it currently stands, with Francois Schink in P6. In fact, he's just found his way at pathways Eric Statzer, but as he makes his way through there, Eric Statzer P7, followed by Phil Mikolajczyk in P8, and then we do have, well, it's Jesse Bodas P9, followed by Jermaine Warren in P10 here. The David Ton gaining a lot of places, gaining 11 places since the start of this race, and well, a slow start has really worked out for him as well. It's the case he's avoided in the open instance, and indeed almost half the field was involved in some sort of damage or early instant in this race so far, and it is the case that is our top 10 quite a way away, with Gus Blondell then being the next driver in the pack, running in P11 here for Blue Flag Motorsports, with David Bauer a lot further back in P12 as they roll the way around here. David Bauer, one of the belligerents in that incident, the Craner curves, and well, everybody has really picked up some major damage, and that means the field has opened up considerably as they roll their way on down and around here. But as we make our way towards the halfway point of this race, it is the case we can see it. Connor Achitella here in P5. Well, he'll want to try and hold on to that position because it'll give him the best possible points. But Francois Schinck here, our Alpha driver, I think would love to take that P5 off of the Delta driver as they make their way through Redgate and now down through the crane of curves once again. But they roll the one down, and Eric Statzer not too far behind here. And in terms of the lap pace right now, it is the case that Statzer a little bit off the pace compared to the top six, it must be said. I think he's focusing more on just bringing the car on around at this point as he rolls his way into the old hairpin in the number 789 car and keeping it smart and sensible as he rolls his way under Starkeys and up towards McLean's. But as he does, we look a bit further back and we can see Jermaine Warren here closing gradually his fellow Honda driver of Jesse Bodas as we look to the gearbox of Jesse Bodas, the privateer in the 100 car here under a bit of pressure as they make the way through 6 and up into turn 7. Now as they roll the way on the brakes here through the right-hander, it is the case. You can see Warren just gradually getting a little bit closer corner by corner, gained 2 attempts there as Bodas went a bit deep at the apex curve and as a result missed the ideal line. But as they come out to Coppice, Bodas having to lift, oh goodness me, and it's the case, the car snapping loose there as he put a wheel on the grass, and well, we didn't get to see that completely, but I can assure you that rear left tyre from the driver's perspective mated with the grass there and the car was almost sent round, and in the end you're going to see Warren goes up the inside here, he makes the move, and Jesse Bodas I think doesn't have really a defence at this point. I think his heart will be more pounding his chest with regards to what happened there. Meanwhile, further down the order, where it's the case they would be battling for the top 10 slots, but instead battling here for P15, it's McKinsey on the right of your picture versus Lauzon on the left of your picture, and as they make their way down for the crane of curves here, well, they're battling for the scraps and they're going to give it everything. But right now, Lauzon on the inside into the old hairpin here, and McKinsey goes to the cutback. Lauzon goes very deep, and McKinsey I think will have the momentum to go all the way around the outside. Under Starkey's bridge they go, and he gets the move done, does McKinsey there. The cut back through the old hairpin counts for P15. As they roll the way up the hill into the right-hander of McLean's now, it is the case. Can Lauzon coming back? Because we would expect on paper that Lauzon has a little bit more pace in the Hyundai Elantra by comparison with McKinsey based on qualifying. But of course, qualifying is just one part of the conundrum, and then the race itself is the bigger point in question. But as they make the way on down the round through this back straight, it is the case. You can see Lauzon very close. And as we ride on board here with John Lauzon, the 77 drives thinking about it, there's no doubt about that. I think he needs a little bit more pace in the run as they head through the S's here. And as they roll the way through, you can see McKinsey a bit unsettled there, the car not taking the apex of turn 10 as comfortably, and Lauzon's looking around the outside here as they make the way on the braking into Melbourne, and as they roll away for the right hander, well, McKinsey's going to defend tight to the inside, and you can see Parks on apex there to try and cut off Lauzon's cutback line, but instead what Lauzon just simply does is said, right, well, if I can't come back on you, I'll simply go round the outside, you can get the inside into Goddard's, but he has to back out there. It's the case McKinsey just about stays ahead as they roll the way out to the final corner and on to another lap. What for them will be the end of lap 5, going on to lap number 6. Meanwhile, leader's just behind, and that is James Carr in the rear of your picture, and right now making his way across that timeline to go on to lap number 7. That is the difference in terms of how that incident has split the field up so much. And as they roll the way on around at this point, we look to Francois Schinck, meanwhile, who running in P6 has closed up to the back of Achatella, and as they head up towards turn number 1 at this point, in towards the braking zone they charge. Statzer just in the rear of the picture there, but Eric Statzer falling a little bit off the pace by comparison, and as they head into the right-hander of Redgate Corner, he's half a second down in terms of lap pace versus these two. But Schinck right now, if he can't make his way past Achatella easily, we may just see Statzer get right back into that fight, and that would be lovely to see. But all the same, of course, I think Achatella at this point will try and defend for this, because he's only got 5 minutes left and he's got some space to play with as they head on down through the old hairpin. As they roll the way out, you can see both drivers there running a bit wide, and I think that will count as an off-track as they make the way under Starkeys and up towards what is McLean's here. And Schinck really having to use the full width of the road to stay close to the Veloster. I think Schinck at this point really giving it his all. I think he recognises the fact that a Delta driver is in a bit of a class of his own in terms of that lap pace compared to his peers in the Delta class, and as they roll the way up through Coppice right now, it is the case that Achatella goes a little bit wide there, but to be fair, carries the pace out to the corner, and Schinck holding on into the toe as they make the way on down. Meanwhile, a bit further up the road, we can see that Lauzon is trying to once again go around McKinsey at Melbourne. He can't make it happen, however, and this is the battle for P15 as they make the way into the braking zone. Lauzon up the inside into Goddard's here. There's contact between the two of them. Well, as they make the way on out here, it is the case the elbows are coming out, and Lauzon muscles his way up the inside, but now as they make the way out towards Redgate Corner, look at this, Lauzon trying to squeeze what is McKinsey to the inside into Redgate. McKinsey on that very tight inside line, under braking they go, and McKinsey gets it stopped, and Lauzon still goes to the cutback here as they head down the crane of curves, and as they charge down the hill here, it's like they're battling for the win, albeit it's P15 as they head down the hill, and as they come charge on down, Lauzon is not giving up on that outside. You can see McKinsey backing out, he's going to try and go for the cutback tight once again, but as they roll the way through the right-hander, it is the situation whereby Lauzon right now doing everything in his power to hold on to the position. I think he's got it done. Meanwhile here, it's Francois Schinck trying to go round the outside to inside through the crane of curves and down into the old hairpin for what is P5, and as they roll the way into the right-hander here for the old hairpin, I think it's the case that Schinck has got it done, and now he's only got to gain one more place in order to take that P4 and gain what would be that top 4 reverse pole for race number 2. He's got a gap of what is 3 seconds to close up to Gurkan Demir, and based on lap pace right now, well, he's got 3 minutes to go if you include the final lap in that mixture, and it is the case that he is lapping on average approximately half a second to 7/10 of a second a lap faster than Gurkan Demir, so it could be possible, but he's got to really deliver on these next couple of laps to get within the space to go on the offensive. He's got to pull out a blinder, but to be fair, if we can count on Francois Schinck for anything, it is the case that Beaver Buzz driver knows when he's got to deliver. He's Schumacher-esque in that regard. You give him a lap time, he will find it if it's in the car, and he will deliver it time and time again, but the question is, can he get it done in the time remaining? But as he heads down in towards what is Melbourne at this point, rolling his way into the hairpin, we will have to wait and see. Meanwhile, a bit further up the road here, we can see that Jerome Pajulas, in fact, is being caught up to in the battle for P3 by Gurkan Demir, and right now it is the case the Torksteer racing driver from Turkey, as we see Aaron Lahr there pulling it to the outside to stay out of the way of the lead lap drivers coming on through. With the blue flags waving, we can see that Gurkan Demir here definitely right now closing up gradually to Pajulas as they roll the way into Redgate Corner on what is effectively the penultimate lap as we're to understand it, and as they roll the way through the right hand, if he can carry this on, he may just have a shot at P3, albeit, or he can put what is a bit of pressure on the toes of Pajulas, and to be fair, finishing P4 will give him pole position for race number 2, so he might want to think about whether he really wants to take that P3 right now. In the fact, it may gain him some points from race number 1, but also it then means he takes a bit of a disadvantageous position on the grid for race number 2. So you've got to be smart about where you finish sometimes in these sprint races when reverse grids are involved. And as he makes his way up towards turn number 7, he may just start to back it off a little bit. Meanwhile, a bit further back here, we can see that Jesse Bodas and also Auguste Blondel are both closing up to the back of Jermaine Warren in front of them, as we see the privateer here in the number 21 car drifting his way into the old hairpin there, the rear snapping loose. But look at Auguste Blondel here, getting very close on the run out of what is the old hairpin on the rear of Bodas as they head up towards McLean's. And right now the number 17 driver here definitely trying to get into that top 10 right at the finish as he rolls his way through McLean's corner, and that Elantra is absolutely tearing up the asphalt here as they make their way up towards Coppice, heading through the right-hander at turn number 8, and as he does, the number 17 driver definitely getting closer and closer as they roll their way on out of the corner. But as they head on through at this point, it is the case with 20 seconds to go, our race leader James Carr has just gone on to lap number 10, the final lap of this race, and the white flag is waving. Of course, these guys will have one more lap after this one to settle their differences, but as they head on through right now, it does look as though Jermaine Warren under major pressure here from a fellow Honda driver and also a Lancia driver, and having to go defensive into Melbourne. He gets it very poorly set up under braking, and the car, I think he's had to try and get the car to stop there. He does stop it, and Jesse Butters not able to capitalise as they make their way up towards Gollards, and as they head into the left-hand hairpin, I think Butters has got to do something quick, because otherwise Blondel will seize on the opportunity as we ride on board the gearbox here of Jermaine Warren as he heads out the final corner and to go on to his final lap in this first sprint race of the evening. And as they head up towards turn number 1, this time you can see he gets the better run out the final corner, there's no doubt about that, but it's over the course of the lap. He just does not seem to have everything locked in as much compared to his rival. And as they head out to turn number 1, or can he get the run all the way down through the crane of curves? I think he's safe this time around as they head on down the hill. Now, to give you a status update with regards to that battle for P4 between Gurkan Demir and Francois Schinck, the gap is 1 second between the pair right now, so it is closing up. We may see something bright at the end. We'll take a look over very shortly, but right now Blondel gets it wrong coming out of the old hairpin, and I think that's going to be his chances scuppered for taking that P10. But meanwhile, we look from the bottom end of the top 10 to the front of it, and here is James Carr rolling his way out of the Melbourne corner right now. Only one more corner to go, and the checker flag will await him when he comes around, and just ahead of him, Shepka has just been passed by John Lauzon for P14 from what we understand it. But as James Carr makes his way out of the final corner, it is the case. He takes the win in race number 1. The checker flag waves, and it's James Carr from Breakfast at Dinner, your winner overall and in the Alpha class, ahead of Robert Abrams in a brilliant P2 for the Veloster driver from Yellow Flag Motorsports. And then completing the podium, it will be Jerome Pajulas from Beaver Buzz Energy who takes P3 ahead of Gurkan Demir P4, Francois Schinck in P5, and then we will have Connor Adjutella, your winner in the Delta class, P6 overall, ahead of Eric Statzer, P7, and Eric Statzer takes that P7, P2 in the class, the Delta class, and then look at this, Paul Mikolajczyk takes P8, which is the equivalent of third place in the Delta class. He's on the podium on his return. That's brilliant to see for the privateer. It will then be Jermaine Warren who holds on to P9 come the finish, ahead of Jesse Bodas and Auguste Blondel on his debut. Bodas P10, Auguste Blondel P11, and then we've still got some more drives to come on through. It is the case they're a bit further down. It's David Bowen next, who'll be coming home in P12 as we're to understand it. We've also had some drives already finish their races, including Logan McKenzie a lap down in P16, Aaron Lahr P17, Fernando Takahashi P18, and Spencer Cockayne P19. We also had those retirements of what was Daniel Smith and Dom Savio, but we still have some drives to make the way to the very end of this race. And well, behind everybody is Micah Hendricks and also John Lauzon and Matt Shepka as they all come through to the penultimate corner. But look into the head of this group. It is the case. It wasn't the way he wanted to start off his evening after a strong qualifying performance, but he'll look to bounce back, I'm sure, in races 2 and 3. David Bowen in for breakfast or dinner will take P12. He'll come to the line, and then it will be Micah Hendricks P13 in the Audi. Wasn't to be in race number 1. And then John Lauzon in P14. And then to complete our lead lap finishers, Matt Shepka P15 in the end. And that's how they all stand after race number 1. And well, now we get ready for race number 2. But as we set the grid for race number 2, let's take you through that grid for our second race. And here it is. James Carr will line up on pole for race number 2, ahead of John Lauzon, who joins him on the front row. Behind them, we have David Bauer and Logan McKenzie. Well, in fact, I believe that is incorrect. No, that's the incorrect grid there, ladies and gentlemen, because this is a replay file. Getting a little bit ahead of myself, I must admit, and therefore we won't be able to take you through that grid. Instead, we'll have to wait until our drivers are all lined up and we immediately go racing. But it is the case, of course, with our breakfast and dinner driver of what is James Carr taking that win. He'll be starting in P4, and then it will be alongside him on that second row. We will have what is there our velocity driver of Robert Abrams, but meanwhile on the very front row it will be a Gurkan Demir who starts on pole position as we wait for Jermaine Warren to take to the grid, and then we'll get the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 2 here at Donington Park, our second sprint race of the evening. Another 15 minutes of racing as they charge up towards turn number 1 once again. Watch out further in the rear of the pitch. We can see a number of drives out of place, looking to all gain positions early on. As we see there, Jermaine Warren defending hard. Jesse Bodas battling side by side with what is David Bauer. But look at this, and Mikolajczyk right now trying to hold off Micah Hendricks as we've got off circuit. They're Gurkan to me, your pole sitter off circuit and returning into the crane of curves here. And as they all come down the hill this time, will it be drama like on lap number 1? I don't think so. I think everybody's been able to make it on through this time, albeit we've got a car spun. That's Dom Savio, and I think we've also got Logan McKenzie off. I think McKenzie's been involved in a bit of contact with perhaps Dom Savio or somebody else, but they've mostly all made it on through. And at the head of the pack, meanwhile, we've got Robert Abrams and the yellow flag Motorsports Veloster holding on to position here as they come charging through McLean's and heading up towards Coppins for the first time of asking. But as they roll the way through here, look at the pack, and further back you can see it is the case in the mad scramble to just get towards the top 10. It is the case that Gurkan Demir right now making his way back up to P10. John Lauzon making his way around the outside of Mikolajczyk, and meanwhile Matt Shepka now on the offensive. They're all charging on through here, and it is the case with so many drivers out of place come the end of race number 1. It was always going to be a frantic lap 1 here, but right now it's even more frantic than you can imagine as Aaron Lahr also trying to come from Takahashi into the S's. No way through for the Talkstick Racing driver. Oh goodness me, and that is Spencer Cockayne turn with his teammate Auguste Blondel there. I think there may have been a bit of contact with some of the other drivers further along. Daniel Smith as well in a bit of damage with regards to what is Logan McKenzie as they roll the way out. But we look from them to our leaders right now for as they head into the final corner for the first time of asking. Robert Abrams here from Yellow Flag Motorsports. Well, he's made his way into lead, but right now he's under a lot of pressure as they come to the timing line. So after one lap, it's Robert Abrams who leads ahead of James Carr P2, Francois Schenck P3, Conor Achatella P4, followed by David Bauer P5, then Statzer in P6, Bajulas P7, Bodas in P8, and then we've got Demir and Lauzon completing the top 10. Here comes Gurkan Demir. It's a case of looking up the inside of Bodas here for P8, and as they roll the way through, there's a bit of contact. Bodas is turned. Oh, goodness me, and Lauzon there have to take evasive manoeuvres. A bit of a scratch to the side of the car there, but I think he'll survive it as they make the way on down the crane of curves. Shepka rolling on down the hill now in towards P10, and meanwhile behind Micah Hendricks trying to close back up as they head in towards the old hairpin. He's got a lot to do. Jesse Bodas has dropped to P13 as Aaron Lar comes on through. There goes Jermaine Warren as well. They all recover, and as they make their way out to the old hairpin, it's the scramble. Fernando Takahashi getting racy as well as they make their way through the left-hander at turn number 5 up towards turn 7. They charge, and as they make their way on up the hill into the braking zone this time, no change. Takahashi can't find his way on through right now, but a lock up there for Jermaine Warren just ahead. A bit of brake dust being kicked over that front left brake, and as they make their way out of what was McLean's and into Coppis here, Mikolajczyk falling further down the order, down to P18 now. Meanwhile, up front, we can see that Robert Abrams continue to defend here as they make their way through the S's once again, and as they roll the way on through this time, it's going to be a case of James Carr is very close, and Carr's looking for the move in the run down towards turn number 11 here into Melbourne. They go. It's Carr up the inside. Meanwhile, Abrams on the outside as they head through the right-hander. It is the situation whereby Carr, I think, will get this done. Now, is there any way back for Abrams? I don't think so, unless he goes all in on the brakes into Goddard's here, and James Carr gains the lead of this race after 2 laps as they make the way into Goddard's and out to go on to lap number 3. But as they roll the way on out here, we've still got more battling to come. Jerome Bagilla's up the inside there of Eric Statzer for P6. Meanwhile, Gherkin to me into the pit lane. Is that damage on the car, or is it a drive-through penalty? I'm going to go with the former rather than the latter. Or as he makes his way down the pit lane here. In fact, I think it may be a drive-through penalty in the fact he's not pulling over towards the pit box. As I look at my commentary box window, it is a case we see James Carr here now leading, but to be fair, it's not as though he's got much breathing room in the fact that I think Abrams and Schink are both going to try and come back in as soon as possible. We've also got Jesse Bodas into the pits, and I think that may be for repair work. We've had confirmation Gherkin to me it was a drive-through penalty, but meanwhile Jesse Bodas into the pit lane, and with a damaged car, I think that will be repair work rather than just simply coming on through to serve a penalty. But meanwhile, we focus here on our leaders, and you can see it's the case that Abrams trying to go around the outside into McLean's, and as they rolled away for the right-hander, it's the case side by side they go up towards Coppis now, and Carr has got to brake as late as possible here to try and open the corner up for himself, but there's no way he can do so because Abrams makes sure that he pins the breakfast dinner driver to the inside. But now it's the run down the back straight here, and as they make their way up towards the S's this time around, Abrams on the right, Carr on the left. It's the case, it's a reversal of previous situation, and Abrams gets ahead on the inside into the S's, but this will leave him vulnerable out the corner. There's contact there. It's the case that James Carr gives a brief whack to the back of Abrams' machine as they make their way down towards Melbourne. Francois Schink comes up through, but look at this from James Carr. He goes on the brakes as late as possible, and as he does, he gets into the mix, but in return, Schink's able to use the cutback. He gains 2 for the price of 1. Francois Schink's now your leader as they head into Goddard's, and as they roll the way into left-hander at this point, you can see how everybody's stacking up right now to have a go at the top 3. Their battle is absolutely intense, but it's the same case that everyone can now try and capitalise. There's David Bauer, who's trying to go round the outside into turn 1 versus what is there, Robert Abrams. I think he may have it done. The Elantra's got the legs, but to be fair, Abrams is going to try and outbrake him here. He's got the brake advantage on that Veloster, and as they roll the way through Redgate Corner, it is the case that David Bauer's only in P3 for a short while for the time being as they make their way down into the crane of curves. Meanwhile, further back, we can see that Eric Statzer, meanwhile, your second place driver in the Delta class behind Connor Achatella. It is the case he's got Jan Lales on for company as they make their way on down the hill, charging on down. Further back, we can see it's the case that Fernando Takahashi battling side by side here with Daniel Smith in the run through the crane of curves, and as they head on down the hill in towards the old hairpin, Takahashi has to back out there. The oversteer not enabling the car to rotate through. In fact, just a face sort of understeer there through turn number 3, and the Audi not wanting to rotate. But as they make the way on through, I don't think Takahashi's backing out of this at all. He's staying right there with Smith, but we have to cut from them to our battle for the lead indeed for P5 as well, as we can see that Achatella right behind Bagilas right now and putting on a huge amount of pressure as they roll the way on out of the corner and up towards the S's they go. But as they do at this point, you can see further back there, John Lauzon battling with Statzer, and Statzer they're pulling to the inside and then backing out and jumping back in behind Lauzon. I think Eric Statzer recognising the fact he can use Lauzon to pull him up to the battle for the lead. And as they make their way through the S's this time around, Statzer playing the racing very smart. But meanwhile, speaking of smart racing, on the previous lap we did see a very late move from James Carr, and this time around we see Robert Abrams return in the favour, albeit not as late on the brakes, but Abrams up the inside into Melbourne. And as they head out of the corner here, heading up towards Goddard's, it is the case that Francois Schink may be given a bit of breathing room as they head into Goddard's this time around for the 4th time asking. They roll the way on through, and as we ride on board here with David Bauer, he finds himself the 4th driver in this chain of cars battling for the lead. We've got 6 cars within the space of 2 seconds fighting for P1 as they head onto lap number 5. And as they roll the way into Redgate, you can see how all of them snaking under braking there, all with the rear brake bias. But it is the case that we do have a Hyundai family here running from P1 to P7, and then we have the first Honda in P8. But as they head dodown the hill here, it's spot the Veloster time. In fact, there's a Veloster in this mix, and it will be a bit suspect compared to the others as they roll their way into the old hairpin, because that Veloster brings something a little bit different to the table as our Elantra drives here, who tries to gain the upper hand coming out the corners, and the Veloster tries to outbrake them into the corners. They make the way up the hill, and you can see here it's the case that we do have what is there. Our leader, Shink, having to defend on the inside into what is McLean's versus Abrams. He makes Abrams go a little bit deep, and now James Carr's going to try and get his nose on the inside. There's no way through here. Shink goes very defensive into Coppice, and it forces Abrams out wide. Now can David Bow come on through as well? You're riding on board with David Bow as he makes his way down the back straight here. And as we look to the exterior cameras, it's side by side as they head down towards the S. It's too wide, and as they roll the way on down here, look at that Veloster go. It's got so much punch in the lower gears, and as they make the way into the S's this time around, Bow's got no response other than to wait. But this is where Connor Achatella right now is going to think about trying to go for that P5, but you can see Bajulas immediately goes defensive in the middle of the road into Melbourne. He knows there that the Delta drive is trying to come through. Oh, get his speed. Bajulas goes late on the brakes, and thankfully for him the door was open there with David Bow giving the space. But as they come on through, we can see James Carr right now still side by side with Robert Abrams. They head into the final corner once again. Half the race complete, half of it to go plus the final lap, and as they roll the way out on this time, this is brilliant racing stuff from our drivers here at what is the Donington Park International Circuit. And as they head up towards turn number 1 this time around, well, they're batting for P2. Carr on the right, Abrams on the left, and as they head into Redgate Corner, these two battling right now is the antidote to Francois Shink's concerns of the fact he can just break away as they head down the hill through the Craner curves. And well, they've got to sell the differences soon, because otherwise they're just going to let Francois Shink go, and if he's allowed to pull a 2-second gap, they will lose the toe on our race leader, and that could be the delta, or the difference if you will, to settle the result for the win of this race as they make the way through Starkeys and up towards McLean's for it's the 6th time of asking. Meanwhile, further back I can tell you that Shepka right now is chasing after Micah Hendricks at P9 as they make the way on through turn number 6 and up towards 7. As they roll the way through the left into right at this point, Shepka right now trying to stay in the wheel tracks of the Audi driver and gain the speed down the straights. As they head up towards Coppice here, it is the case that whilst things are settling down outside the top 10, inside the top 10, they're only reaching fever pitch as we look back to that battle for P2, and you can see Shink now 1.1 seconds clear, and that is a comfortable gap compared to what we're seeing in the rest of this pack. But would you believe it, that's P2 to what is P6, and you've got this man John Lazon in P7. He's not too far behind as we see a slow down there for Jerome Bajulas, and that's a track limits we believe at the S's. Alternative at Coppice Corner, it is easy to pick up a slowdown penalty. That's an automated penalty where drivers have to give the time they gain back as accrued by the iRacing automated shielding system. And meanwhile, we look back up to our battle here for P3, and it's the case that David Bow now up the inside. Well, in fact, that is James Carr on what is the inside. My apologies, and I believe, well, no, in fact, I'm very mistaken. It is David Bow defending him versus his teammate as they head down towards turn number 1, and as they make the way into the braking zone here, James Carr backs out there as they roll the way into turn number 4. But the breakfast dinner drivers here both starting to feast on one another and looking at those potential points of one another as they roll the way down the hill. I think it's the case both of them there want to be the prime contender to chase after Robert Abrams. But right now, look at Achatella here having been released from battling with Jerome Bajulas. The number 55 driver now trying to get into the mix as well as they roll the way for the old hairpin. And remember, it's a top 8 reverse grid for the purposes of race number 3. So it is the case that all of these drivers will be in that reverse grid unless they end up in an incident that takes them out of the race. But right now, they all want to set themselves up as best as possible as they roll the way through McLean's. But as they head on through right now, only 4 minutes plus the final lap to go, and further back we can see here it is the case that Hendricks has found his way up past Eric Statzer. But meanwhile, our Delta driver here trying to hold off the tide of what is the Alphas of Shepka and Aaron Lahr behind. As we look from the gearbox here of Stats in the 789 car, and we can see the chunky grille of what is the Honda Civic making its way down towards the S's, and as they head on towards what is the left into right combination, it is going to be Shepka on the inside here, Honda on Honda as they roll the way through. But in fact, Statzer gets ahead and holds the position comfortably, as I think it's the case that Shepka backs out and decides enough's enough. I'm not going to go for the move here. I'm going to go for it later on as they head on down into the braking zone. But as they do, it is the case we can see Aaron Lahr there looking for that prospect to move, and we've also got Logan McKenzie getting ever closer. But as they roll their way out, it is the case that Aaron Lahr gets the move on the outside of what will be Matt Shepka into the final corner. We can see a flash of lights there from McKenzie, I think trying to distract Aaron Lahr as they roll the way into Goddard's, and as they head through the left-handers to complete lap, Shepka comes on back versus Aaron Lahr. To be fair, Shepka's not giving in as they make the way up towards Redgate Corner once again, and indeed time is now running out with only 3 minutes to go plus the final lap. Not long left in this race, but still plenty of points and positions to be gained, and the most important place you want to be in on this grid right now is in P8, which is owned by Micah Hendricks, because that will put him on pole position for race number 3. And to be fair, given the fact there is a 5-second gap to Jerome Pajulas in P7. I think Hendricks at this point will be rubbing his hands together and thinking, I've got it all set now for the purposes of race number 3. But meanwhile, Gurkin Demir finds his way up the inside of Fernando Takahashi into turn 2 as they roll the way through the Craner curves. He gains that P14, getting ahead of the Audi driver. They roll the way on through. But as we look from the battle for P14 back to the battle for the lead, this is Francois Schinck here holding on to lead for the time being. But that advantage he was able to eke out with the drivers behind, battling against one another and not focusing their attention on him. They've now calmed down a little bit and the gap's dropped to a second as they make their way down the back straight. But as they head up towards the S's this time around, Schinck from Beaver Buzz here will be thinking about one thing, and that's only one thing: do not drop it, do not fall off circuit right now, because he is running a sensational race here. And to be at the head of this pack, having jumped from P3 to P1 in the space of this corner and the run to Goddard, it is the case he timed it to perfection and he will not want to throw it away right now. 3 minutes on the clock if you include that final lap, and as they make the way up towards what is Goddard's corner right now, David Bowe once again looking to go on the move versus Robert Abrams as they roll the way into Goddard. But the thing is, of course, James Carr also wanting to get into the fight here. It is the case the B4D drivers really hungry and looking for those points and places, and as they make the way out of the final corner and down towards Redgate here onto the penultimate lap they go, it is the case that Carr being patient for now, but how long will that patience last? Will he want a pop at that P3 later on in the race versus his teammate as they make the way through? I think they'll probably work together, to be fair. The ethic down in breakfast for dinner is fantastic in teams with the teamwork ethic, but at the same time, of course, you always want some extra points where you can grab them. And as they make their way down to the old hairpin here, we look from this battle to Logan McKenzie, who finds himself in P12 chasing after Aaron Lahr, the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver, as they roll the way down the hill versus the Talksteer Racing driver. And as they head into the right-hander of the old hairpin, no change at the moment. And McKenzie, of course, after a difficult race 1, a difficult race number 2 as well, and he'll be hoping for a better race 3 as they roll the way up the hill in towards McLean's, but no movement at this time. And in fact, it's Aaron Lahr who found his way back into that position only moments ago after McKenzie tried to make the move for P11 on the previous lap. But looking from them to Robert Abrams here, it is the case he's under pressure in the run down the back straight in towards the S's. They come onto the brakes, and it's David Bowe on the left of your picture, Abrams on the right on the inside. He holds the position firm right now as meanwhile they roll the way on through, and John Lowes on here is a bit of the element X as they make the way up towards Melbourne, in the fact that he could really get himself into the fight. And you can see that James Carr's immediately peeled to go defensive, and Lowes on out breaks himself into the corner. He goes very deep, and here comes Achatella, who tries to gain the place as they come out to the hairpin, but Lauzon brings it back together just about. But that was a near miss of John Lauzon. He could have had that go a lot worse. And as they roll their way into the final corner, they end the penultimate lap and they will go on to the final lap. 10 laps here at Donington Park in race number 2, and it is Francois Schinck who leads at the front of your camera, with Robert Abrams behind in P2, David Bowe P3, and then the rest will follow of Carr, Lauzon, Achatella, and also Bajulas, all hunting for the win of this race and to be on that overall podium as they make the way out of Redgate. But Bajulas goes a little bit deep, and that's going to cost him, I think, the run into the old hairpin. He will drop off of this pack. But as they make the way on down the hill, sweeping from right to left and then into the right-hander of the old hairpin, it is the case our drivers right now all find themselves having to be right on the ball here. They can't afford to drop a single lap, and particularly Robert Abrams right now, who has been right on board the gearbox here of the Yellow Flag Motorsports drive. I think he's found that rhythm. I think he's found that comfort zone, and right now as he rolls his way into McLean's, it's not too many more major corners to go. As he heads out to McLean's and up towards Coppice, each corner is absolutely precious. He's been able to buy himself 7/10 of a second of a gap here from the Rex of the Dinner drivers. And to be fair, Bowe and Carr right now looking much closer together with each other, and the prospect of battling one another than they are, I think, battling with Abrams as they make their way down the back straight. But as they head up towards the S's this time around, all coming through in fast sequence, we can see there comes Schinck, there comes Abrams, and then the rest of the pack follows as they roll their way on through. But as they come charging out of the chicane, it is the case that we do see no moves being set up, I think, into the Melbourne hairpin as they all come into that braking zone. I think it will calm down now for the final corner. The only potential prospect is Lauzon looking for the move there versus Carr into Goddard. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, the checker flag awaits him, and he's had to fight very hard for it, but he's done it, ladies and gentlemen. For as he emerges from the final corner, here is your winner in race number 2 at Donington. It is Francois Schinck from Beaver Buzz who takes the overall win, plus also the Alpha win ahead of Robert Abrams P2, David Bowe P3, James Carr P4, and then John Lauzon P5, Con Achatella P6. He's your winner in the Delta class ahead of Jerome Bajulas. Micah Hendricks makes P8, and that will put him on pole for the purposes of race 3. And there's Matt Shepka P9, Eric Statz, the final driver in the top 10 overall. That's P2 in the Delta class, Aaron Lar P11, Logan McKinsey P12, Daniel Smith P13, Gurkin Demir P14, Fernando Takahashi P15. He completes what is your Delta podium. Well done to Fernando Takahashi. Dom Savio P16, and then we have what is Jermaine Warren P17 here, and then we will have Paul Mikolajczyk very shortly coming on through and to complete his race in P18. Not the way he wanted this race to go after a strong race number 1, but still there's a race 3 on the cards. He crossed the line P18, and then we have Spencer Cockayne P19 holding off Jesse Bodas right to the finish, and our only driver who didn't make it to the end of the race, Gus Blundell, will be classified as P21, and I don't think he'll be classified in the final results given the fact that he only managed to complete 1 lap of the race. But now, ladies and gentlemen, with those 2 races complete, we do have the fortune of what is a brief break before we do go racing again. Our driver's been given a 10-minute break, and we are going to be taking what is going to be a 4-minute break. We will be back at what is 20:43 British Summer Time, or UTC +1, for the build-up to our final race of this evening. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, as we return then for the build-up to race number 3 for, as you can see on our schedule here, for round number 8 of the Alpha Touring Change Season 5. And of course, our host venue today being Donington Park in Leicestershire in the United Kingdom. It is the case we now have a 30-minute sprint feature on our cards, which will be kicking off at 1 minute after 8:45 this evening, British Summer Time, or UTC +1. And, well, it will be the case. There'll be a lot of pressure on one man in particular to have a better end to his evening. Then it starts this evening, and that is the man you see here in the background, Micah Hendricks, who finished in P8 in race number 2, will be on pole for the purposes of race number 3. And of course, Hendricks, known for running in what's the Hyundai Veloster in the first half of the season, switching to the Audi RS3. It'll be interesting to see how he can make the German machine work all the way from start to finish, as he rolls his way there out of McLean's and up into Coppice Corner. And to be fair, he hasn't really had the opportunity to demonstrate the pace that he's got at the helm of the car. And given the fact that in race number 1 it all went horribly wrong for a good number of drives, Hendricks included, in the rundown through the Carina curves on the opening lap, and then in race number 2 it was all about recovering from towards the back of the field to get into that P8 position. But now he'll have his chance to shine from the front row, and indeed we have seen plenty of standout performances so far, and we hope to see Hendricks stand out in race number 3, and that includes the likes of Eric Statzer. Whilst he's not been on the pace of Connor Achatella, still delivering 2 P2s back to back in the Delta class here, and really having the best of the rest pace versus Achatella in the Delta class. And we look forward to seeing how Statzer can get on in the 789 car. He'll be starting from what will be just outside the top 8, so therefore he will not be benefiting from the reverse grid for the gridding process of race number 3, but still he could have some opportunities. But meanwhile, 2 drivers who've really been trying to put their foot in there in terms of fighting hard and pedal to the metal, James Carr and also his teammate David Bowe from breakfast at dinner. The pair of them both right up there in race 1, albeit was the case cut short a little bit for David Bowe compared to James Carr, and then in race number 2 both of them right up there once again. And well, how will they fare given the fact they'll be starting towards the lower end of that top 8 with the reverse grid in play, but at the same time they've both shown their ability to go fast and race it all the way through. But the big question we do have, of course, is how long can the Hyundai Elantra keep its tyres together over the course of the 30-minute distance we have seen over our previous sprint features at other circuits? It is the case the Elantra really drops off in the final 10 minutes compared to its peers, and could we therefore see the likes of, say, what is Hendricks and also Fernando Takahashi in cars such as the Audi be able to pull the upper hand on their Elantra rivals, and even what is the Hyundai Velosters, could they also start to really come into the mix? All that and more shall be found out in approximately what will be a minute's time, as very shortly we'll be transitioning to the grid, and when that grid is in play then we'll be waiting for the green to go racing for our third and final standing start this evening. Of course, we've been in true touring car fashion, we have those standing starts rather than those rolling starts, and right now we are about to get that transition over to the grid for race number 3. But as the transition does occur, of course, we can't walk you through the grid due to technical limitations with the iRacing replay file. And as our drivers get themselves set right now, it is the case that we do look to the grid as it is being formed. And as we do say, it will be the case that we will be seeing with Hendricks there on pole position, joined by Jerome Bajulas on that front row, and then behind them we can see it will be at the combination of Lauzon and one of our other drivers there, and I believe it will be Achatella who's alongside him starting P3, and it'll be interesting to see how Achatella holds on in this mix of drivers as well. He's shown a lot of pace. Has he got the pace to potentially be on the overall podium come the finish? We'll have to wait and see about that, and watch out further behind. Of course, we do have some drivers who'll be trying to come through the field, such as Gurka De Beer, who starts in P16. But here come the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for our final race of the season at Donington Park, as Micah Hendricks gets a really good start in the run down to turn 1. Look at the rear of the picture. You see Logan McKinsey down on the left trying to make moves early on as they roll the way to turn 1. Achatella on the inside here versus Bajulas into Red Gate Corner. He's going early as the 55 driver here. Can he get it done before the crane occurs? That's the question as they make their way down the hill for the first time. And as they all charge on down here, it looks so many a two-wide situation right now. But everyone giving one another just enough space as they head on down, much like race number 2. A couple of bumps, but nothing major, and as they head into the old hairpin, everybody safely makes their way through, although Aaron Lar gets a little bit knocked sideways there, as meanwhile it is Connor Achatella into lead, as we're hearing that Micah Hendricks has had an off track at the old hairpin, and now the Delta driver finds himself at the top of the pack as they roll the way through McLean's Corner. And look here, John Lauzon battling side by side with David Bowe. Bowe going around the outside there in the run through McLean's, and up into Coppice they go, and as they do, you can see Lauzon backing out there as they roll though through the right hander, and now down the back straight, further back, we can see that Logan McKinsey has gained multiple places since the start of this race, now up to P9 as they head down the back straight here, and further back we see David Daniel Smith there in a bit of a squabble with Dom Savio as they head down to the braking zone. Line astern now as they all coming down, but meanwhile Smith trying to gain the move here on Savio into the braking zone. Can he get it done? He does in the end. He makes his way into P16 and he gets it done quite forcefully, but it matters. And as they make their way to braking here, oh goodness me, we can see it's the case that Carr has got ahead of Achatella and behind Hendricks, gets the place back versus Bajulas. They're defending on the inside into the Melbourne hairpin as they head in towards the final corner here. But I don't think Achatella's going to complain too much losing one place here, given the fact it's Elantra in front of him, and he'll be hoping that Elantra falls by the wayside in the final 10 minutes. But as they roll their way out of the final corner, this is the first lap complete, and they now head down to Red Gate once again. So after one lap, it is Carr ahead of Achatella P2, Hendricks P3, defended versus Jerome Bajulas in P4, followed by David Bauer P5, Francois Schick P6, and John Lawson up the inside of Schick for P6 there into Red Gate corner. They swap places, but in fact the two teammates now from Beaver Buzz, they're side by side down the hill, and this is the worst thing you want when you're battling with your own teammate in a place where it's very easy to get it wrong. But I think it's the case they'll both give one another just enough room. Lawson still on the inside here. He's really asserting that position on what is Schick as they roll away for a bit of contact there, and Schick's knocked to the grass and he brings the car back together. But I don't think Schick's going to be too pleased. That was his teammates and he's giving him a little bit of a knock there as they make their way up the hill. And oh goodness me, that's Jerome Bajulas in a bit of contact there with Micah Hendricks, and the Hendricks making the Audi as wide as possible as they make their way through 6 into McLean's at 7 as they head up the hill into Coppice once again. We see that David Bow now trying to go round the outside, no way through this time as they roll the way onto the back straight. But meanwhile behind them it is the case that we've got Logan McKinsey P8 just behind Robert Abrams who's in P7, and then we've got Shepka P9, Schick P10, and then the best of the rest outside the top 10 it's Eric Statzer in at P11 here as they make their way down the hill once again and into the braking zone for the S's. They roll the world in. Further back we can see that Spencer Cockade here up the inside of Daniel Smith for P15, but he gets it wrong at the brake and he cuts the corner. That'll be a slowdown, there's no doubt about that. Meanwhile Joe Bajulas here defending versus what is David Bauer for P3, and oh goodness me, getting a little bit too aggressive on the power of the apex curve there, but it causes the car to straight line out the corner, and that understeer there almost catching him out, but he has to defend now into Goddard's as they make their way into the braking zone, and as they do, Bajulas holding on for now, but he's enabling the top two to just run away with the proceedings here, and this is the thing you can feel, I think, that the frustration of Bauer, Lawson and Abrams is palpable, given the fact they're not being given the opportunity to go running after the top two, but of course that's touring car here, and Jerome Bajulas is doing everything he can to hold on, but I think this time Bauer's going to have the run into the crater curves here as they head on down the hill. They come charging on down for when it's the third time of asking, and Bauer is ahead, and now the question is, will Lawson be given the opportunity to come past his teammate, or will Bajulas become a forward in this side as they roll the way through turn number 4, and as they come out to the right hand here you can see everybody using the full exit there to their advantage, trying to run as much of the width of the exit curve, and as they head up towards Wes McLeod's corner here, it's the case that we can see that Bajulas trying to go round the outside, but in the end Lawson sneaks up the inside into McLeod, and meanwhile Robert Abrams also in this fight and tried to squeeze his way between the two Beaver Buzz Energy drivers as he makes his way into Coppice. And as they head through the right hand here, you can see a bit of contact there between Lawson and Bajulas. Lawson gets it done in the end, but I can imagine that Lawson right now not putting in any punches. He wants to get through it. Francois Schick going up the inside there of Abrams, who finds himself out of position. And look at what is McKinsey as well. And Robert Abrams there just caught blindsided by being on that outside line at Coppice and almost losing the place to his teammates as well as they make their way through the S's. But McKinsey staying behind in the end as they now head down towards Melbourne. But as they do, we run on board here with Shepka in P9 in the Torque Racing Honda as he's got a face full there of McKinsey in the Elantra, and whilst he's dispelling, you're right, you'll suddenly see that Elantra appear in the screen, and Shepka right now right behind them as they make their way up towards what is Goddard's at turn number 12. But as they head into the braking zone here, it is the case that just behind Shepka is his teammate Gurkin Devere, and I think right now the Torque Racing drivers both trying to work it as meanwhile it is the case that Hendricks, who was on the right then, we couldn't quite see him on camera, they went side by side through what was their Goddard's, and right now Hendricks trying to go up the inside of Shepka into turn number 1 into Red Gate corner, and of course Hendricks having dropped quite a way down the order since starting on pole, and now into that P10 position where he's going to have the run here for P9, I think, down through the crane of curves. Shepka's not going to give this up very easily, to be fair, and that Honda's got a lot of lateral grip as they make the way on down, but it is the case that in the end Hendricks is just able to outpower the Honda in the run to the old hairpin, and well, with Shepka on that outside line he could be vulnerable here, but look at Eric Statzer meanwhile, who's trying to make the move on Gurkin Devere as they come through Starkeys and up towards McLean's, and he's going to try to hang it all the way around the outside to the inside into McLean's corner, and as they roll their way into the braking zone here, Devere has to give Statzer the space as they come on out. This is battling for P11, and Statzer, our Delta driver, trying to take the fight to the Alphas, and behind Aaron Lahr also getting an itch for the fight as they make their way through Coppice corner, but no change at Aaron Lahr so far. And Aaron Lahr not having the happiest of day here, of course, at Donington Park, but trying to get a top 10 come the finish. And as he makes his way down the back straight here, I think he's having to wait his turn a little bit more as they head on down. But look at Stats, he's looking very racy, and he looks the inside there. And you can see Gurkhan did not expect Stats to be there. But as they make that out of the corner, there's contact between the two of them. Stats has pushed to the grass. And meanwhile, here comes Aaron Lahr, and also with Dom Savio. Lahr up the inside into the braking zone for Melbourne. And as they roll the way for the right-hander, turn number 11, if you're numerically inclined, it is the case. They roll the way out, and Aaron Lahr is ahead by a nose as they make the way up towards turn number 12. But as they do, Gurkhan now gets the power on the inside, and Gurkhan holds on to P11 for the time being. But Aaron Lahr now trying to unleash the beast onto the front of the hood of that car. And as they make the way out the corner, Daniel Swift goes a bit wide there in P15 in the rear of your picture as they make the way out towards turn number 1 once again. But it's all kicking off, whether it's at the front of the field or in the midfield or towards the rear of the field. And there's battles for left, right and centre, and right now everybody itching to try and gain some more points here in the sprint feature as they roll the way on around onto lap number 5. But as they head on through, it is the case we look to our leader here, and James Carr has just run off into the distance as we briefly lose in there for a short moment. That's a bit of a connectivity issue, I think, and hopefully that's not a sign of something that's coming later on in the race. We hope not. That could be the equivalent of an engine failure, of course, in real world motorsport. But meanwhile, Achatella holding on to P2 versus David Bauer behind. I think David Bauer at this point needs to get the move done soon, because in that dirty air off the back of the Veloster, those front tyre temperatures are going to be rising, and it's not going to be comfortable as they roll the way through turn number 8 at Coppice and head down the back straight. But as they do, no change right now. You can see everybody falling into a bit of a sequence as they head on down towards the S's. But as they come charging on through, here is Aaron Lahr. It is the case holding off Dom Savio for the time being, and Eric Stats in fact losing out versus Savio in the run to Melbourne last time out, of course, after trying to make that move. But meanwhile, a bit further up the road, we can see that's a slowdown there for David Bauer, a slowdown at the S's. And as they make their way through, Melbourne is going to try and bring himself to the inside here versus what is Shink. But meanwhile, as they roll the way out the corner side by side, look at this, John Lauzon in the battle with his teammate Bajulaz here, and they're both scrambling for position, and Bajulaz at the inside allows on into the final corner. And as they come on out here, well, it is the case, I think Lauzon's got a little bit deep. He'll have the traction out of the corner and the run to the inside of Redgate, but behind them, it's the case we've almost got 3 wide there between what is Shink, Bauer and Abrams as they head up towards turn 1 as well. It is the case as they roll the way into the right hander. I think Beaver Buzz here today have come with the mantra of we're all going racing and we're all going fighting, even if it's with each other, and everybody else right now is finding themselves right in the mix of the Beaver Buzz battles as they charge down the hill in towards the old hairpin. But you can see it is the case that with Abrams right now tucked in behind what is David Bauer, we ride on board here with Robert Abrams after what was a great result in race number 2, right now trying to get past where's David Bauer, but I don't think he's finding any pace to get ahead of David Bauer. He's having to wait instead for the opportunity much later in the race and just trying to protect the car right now. And of course, all our drivers have to be mindful of the fact that with double the time distance, it does mean that these cars really do start to wear down those front tyres and also those front brakes, and those tyres, if they're overheated and they're worn down, in this case those lap times will fall very dramatically towards the end. But right now, everybody inside what is the top 12 or top 13 in fact running in the 37s, and the drivers outside running in the 38s. But you can imagine those lap times will fall into the 38s to the 39s depending on the tyre preservation done in the latter stages of the race. But as they come charging through the S's here, Abrams will looking for that potential move. He's close, but is he close enough to think about it? No, he stays put behind David Bauer. In fact, goes a little bit deep into the corner to try and get the cut back through Melbourne as they roll the way through the right hander and up towards Gollards. But as they do, we look to Eric Stats there meanwhile, who goes up the inside there of Gus Blondell and literally parks the car on apex of Blondell there. Tapping Stats are on the rear. It'll be a little bit of a knock, but to be fair, these touring car machines can take a bump or two. It's not as though they have to be protected as they roll the way on around. They can take those rubs and knocks because, of course, touring car, you do see a lot of elbow rubs, and that is what touring car can be about as they roll the way on through and onto another lap. But meanwhile, as they come on to what is lap number 7, meanwhile, at the front of the field, well, more in P2 towards the front of the field. Here is Connor Achatella, your Delta leader right now, trying to hold off John Lauzon through the crane of curves, but as they come on down, he's on the outside of 3, and I think Lauzon's going to come through there, and Achatella, to be fair, I think backing off, recognising that 2 does not really go into 1 at the old hairpin when you're running at such speeds as this. And as they head through what is McLean's, also through Starkey's, I should say, up towards McLean's right now. I think Achatella being quite tactical with the way he's battling, in terms of he's battling where he's got the ability to keep drivers behind, but when he started to feel as though that battle is not worth his time anymore, he's going to only lose time in the race, that's when he decides, you know what, enough's enough, I'll yield the position, but at the same time, he's not falling off the pace versus John Lauzon, and Lauzon at the same time really trying to come through like a ball in a china shop right now, but we love to see it from John Lauzon as they make way down the back straight, and of course Lauzon delivering that brilliant drive at Imola, and right now trying to carry on from where he left off on the Italian circuit a week ago, but as they make the way through the S's, they all stay in long line and formation as they make the way up towards Melbourne. Will anybody take a peek this time for a potential move up the inside? No, everybody waits their turn and waits for the next corner or the next lap as they roll the way on out, but you can see there Bagilla's definitely getting a better run versus Echitilla out of the hairpin, but he's not close enough to think about diving to the inside for the purposes of Goddard's. Meanwhile, a bit further back we can see that Gherkin de Vere battling with Aaron Lahr. In fact, Lahr got ahead at Melbourne. We call that off camera, but it is the case that Aaron Lahr up into P11 right now as these guys roll the way out to the final corner, but they are gradually creeping up to that long snake train for P2, and it is the case, if you're wondering where that snake train is, here it is at the front, and then as we gradually go our way down the order, that shows you how close this field is after 12 minutes of race, and it is the case with the battling that's been occurring inside the top 8. It is not enabling the top 8 to break away from the field. If anything, the field's staying well in touch with them, and as they make the way on around here, heading down the hill, it is the case that John Lauzon right now finds himself at the head of that P2 pack, and the question for him now is, can he find a way to close down 5 seconds to James Carr, your race leader, who's run off into the distance, and as they make the way on through, when it's McLeod's corner right now, only Lauzon will tell you in time, as meanwhile that's Francois Schinck, I think, a bit squeezed the inside there into McLean's corner, and it is the case as they make the way up into Coppice. He's battling on the inside versus what is David Bowen. Bowen goes round the outside of him, and I think there Schinck was trying to look for the move up the inside of Bagiulas, his teammate, into what was the McLean's corner. In the end, has his nose squeezed to the apex and had to back the car out, but in the process lost a lot of pace, and Bowen's capitalised on the situation. But as they roll the way through the S's this time around, all of our drives again in that long line. It's fantastic to see them running this closely together, and indeed it'd be the case if I close my eyes for a brief while and overlaid some of the old British Touring Car liveries on these cars, it'd be just like BTCC, where it is, of course, this is the closest you will get to British Touring Car Championship at Donington on iRacing, and the AlphaTauri Championship is bringing it live, or AlphaTauri Challenge I should say, is bringing it live to you, as it is the case that Micah Hendricks making his way now down into what is Goddard's here up the inside of Logan McKenzie. He's been looking for this move for some time, and as they roll the way out to the corner up to P8, or is it, as we see McKenzie will now have the inside run, they're side by side into Redgate corner. Now McKenzie on form would have the brakes and also the pace to get back ahead, but of course Hendricks here might be trying to hang around the outside to get the run down the hill through the crane of curves. We ride on board here with the Audi driver as he looks for the return move. And as they make the way up through the gearbox here, of course, the Audi strength being its ability to get to top gear and top speed rapidly as they make the way on down, but he has to back out here as they roll the way into the old hairpin. But as they come through, you can see there McKenzie really on a knife edge, balancing the rear of that Elantra, and as our Audi driver here makes his way in the hot pursuit underneath Starkey's Bridge and up towards McLean's corner, it is the case he's only got 4 attempts to match Shepka behind, so he can't afford to make too many moves for the simple reason he may be vulnerable to the Honda that lies in wait to bounce. But as they head up the hill, you can see just in front that right now it is the case that we do have what is there, Francois Schinck having to go defensive versus Robert Abrams into Coppice corner, so it is all kicking off in front as well as on board right now as Hendricks is very close. You can see McKenzie gradually bringing the car over to the racing line on the right hand side of the circuit for the S's here. McKenzie does not feel safe whatsoever with Hendricks behind right now, and to be fair, he's right to feel that way because Hendricks is showing a lot of pace, and if he can go for the move, he will. But as they make the way up towards Melbourne this time around, it is the case the driver's heading into the braking zone, and a bit further back, Gherkin de Vere up the inside of Aaron Lahr for P11, potentially into Melbourne they roll, and as they do, the Turkish driver gets the move done for Torque Steer Racing. Aaron Lahr will now try to come back in the run towards Goddard's corner as they make the way into the final corner, and well, Aaron Lahr takes a think about it. He decides no, it's not worth it this time around. He's not close enough to go for it, and they stay as they were as they now head on to what's the second half of this race. 15 minutes complete by the time these guys get to Redgate corner, 15 minutes plus the final lap to go, and still plenty of questions to be answered. And speaking of those questions, here's Eric Statzer, who right now not on the pace compared to his peers as Gus Blundell has got ahead of him, but you can imagine the 789 driver trying to get back ahead of Blundell as they roll the way into Redgate corner, but we'll have to wait to see whether that happens or whether Blundell can pull the gap. But as they make the way on through the right-hander of one, and now down the crane of curves they go. Mikolajczyk just behind as well, not too far back in P17, what is P5 in the Delta class, and then we do have Spencer Cockayne here in P18, a sizable gap ahead of Jesse Bodas and also Fernando Takahashi. But we look from them back to Gherkin de Vere, who as he makes his way way up towards McLean's, running in P11. He got past Aaron Lahr only moments ago. He's having to go defensive and holds Aaron Lahr behind. Meanwhile, just a bit further up the road, we can see Logan McKenzie goes deep into Coppice to give the space to Micah Hendricks. Hendricks was on the inside, and Hendricks gets the move done, or does he? As they make their way down the back straight, well, I think Hendricks has got the speed here. McKenzie's going to pin him to the inside for the S's, but as they make their way to the braking zone here, McKenzie gets very aggressive under braking. He can't quite find it, however, Hendricks keeps him staying put, as meanwhile Matt Shepka also gets into the fight as they head down towards Melbourne. They head in towards the braking zone here. You can see Shepka there waiting on the racing line for if McKenzie gets it wrong, but meanwhile just ahead of them, Robert Abrams right now trying to hold on here for what is P5 as they make the way up towards turn number 12. In fact, I'm hearing that he's just made a double pass for the position as they make the way into Goddard, and meanwhile David Bowen up the inside of Shink as they roll their way out of the hairpin. And as they do right now, David Bowen right on the precipice with regards to trying to go on the offensive once again. But more importantly, this is Achatella having to defend for P3 versus Bajulas, is going to try and go all the way around the outside of Redgate Corner, and Achatella squeezing him on the outside. And to be fair, it is the case, if you're on the outside, you've got to be brave and hope that the drive on the inside gives you plenty of space. And I think Achatella, as fair as he possibly could be there, but in the end, it was the case that Bajulas backing out sensibly and looking for the move elsewhere right now. But Achatella becoming the cork in the bottle here for the Alpha train as the Delta drive trying to hold on to this overall podium in race number 3. And as they make the way up the hill towards where's McLean's corner this time, you can see how David Bowen really trying to put the pressure onto Abrams, who only moments ago found his way up into P5, and now David Bowen wants a piece of the action. As they make the way up into Coppice here, of course, Robert Abrams, no stranger to being able to defend well for an extended period of time. He's shown that in the Elantra, and now he's shown it in the Velocity. The car may have switched, but the driver has not. And right now, it is the case that our championship leader definitely doing everything right and keeping Bowen and Shink behind as they make their way into the braking zone. But meanwhile, Bajulas up the inside of Achatella. Achatela's not phased, and Bajulas has to back out. And look at this from Robert Abrams, who's absolutely coming on the fly. He claims one. Surely he's not going to try and go for the double into Melbourne. No, but look at Bajulas, meanwhile, the frustration as he tries to outbrake his rival into Melbourne. But Bajulas down the outside, and to be fair, he comes back. He's driving angry, but he's driving smart as well. And Bajulas doesn't have the run up towards Goddard's corner, or does he? He's up the inside, but meanwhile, there's David Bowen who gets it all wrong, and he outbrakes himself into the corner. In return, it is the case that Francois Shink drops down. Bowen is out. He's jumped to the pits. It is the case. He's picked up damage there. But meanwhile, the story continues, and Robert Abrams right now trying to hold on to P4 as they roll the way to Redgate Corner. My goodness, it's all kicking off here. It is the case. It's elbows, bumpers and tongs as they make their way down the hill through the crane of curves once again. And as they roll the way on down at this point, Robert Abrams right now, I think he's buying Achatella a bit of time. He's not intended to, I don't think, but Achatella right now will be hoping that this battle for P4 rages on rather than starts to close back up to him, because it is the case our top two are far off in the distance, and James Scott is still leading and pulling a gap on John Lauzon. But meanwhile, the battle for P3 rages on, and what Achatella will be hoping is it is the case that Abrams right now becomes a massive defensive barricade and tries to hold on to that P4 for the remainder of the race as they roll the way on through. Further back, meanwhile, Aaron Lahr under pressure from Dom Savio as they make the way into turn number 8. Through Coppice they go, and Dom Savio here really going fighting. Of course, he's in P2 in the Deltas right now and trying to gain places as they make the way down the back straight here, and this is great to see from Dom Savio on the outside in the run down towards the S's. Aaron Lahr defending to the inside here as he tries to come back, and as they make the way into the braking zone here, Aaron Lahr out braking his road. But look at Daniel Smith here pushing Dom Savio through the corner, and I think Dom Savio on reflection will be thinking, well, thank you for that, Daniel. It's the case, it's helped me out massively, because right now Savio back on that inside line into Melbourne, and Smith I think at this point trying to get into the mix to try and take the place off of Aaron Lahr, but he can't find his way into the scramble as they make the way through the hairpin and up towards the final corner here on this lap. They've still got plenty of laps to go, of course, still 10 minutes remaining by the time they get to Redgate Corner, plus the final lap, and we're 12 laps in, going on to lap number 13, and more still to come as our drivers roll their way around. But as they do right now, it is the case a bit further back. You can see that Eric Statzer has gradually fallen away a little bit from what is Auguste Blondin. In fact, he's falling gradually into the clutches of P16 driver Paul Mikolajczyk, as it is the case that Statzer right now running P15. But as they continue to close up on one another, you can see that Jerome Bajulas right now trying to hold on to that P5 versus Micah Hendricks. And meanwhile, Matt Shepka here, well, after the instant we saw Francois Shink lose out at what was Goddard's corner, it is the case that Shink has found his way past Shepka in the run down through the crane of curves. And now Shepka waits to go on the offensive later on And of course, now we are into that point where we will potentially see the cars or the drivers who've been more aggressive on their tyres start to drop off the pace. And in particular, we're looking to our Lancia drivers who may start to suffer from this. But right now, I can tell you one thing, we've got a little battle with the Velocitas here. It is the Delta driver Achatella who is trying to hold off what is Robert Abrams. They make the way down the back straight here. We run on board the gearbox of the privateer of Conor Achatella as they make the way into the S's, and Robert Abrams right now is chasing after him, and that Velocita looks angry, it looks mean, and it is looking for that P3 to be on the overall podium. But as the 55 driver here stays on this racing line, realising it's not going to be close enough for Abrams. You can see how close he gets on corner exits. We're hearing that Daniel Smith has jumped to the pits for damage to the car elsewhere on the circuit. And that's very unfortunate for Daniel Smith and David Batt in the pit lane as well. It's all gone wrong for them, and what we should point out, by the way, only 20 cars took to the grid this time around, which remain more not able to get the car out on the grid due to technical issues of the car. And Micah Hendricks into the pit lane there. Is that a drive-through penalty for Hendricks? I think it may be. He's not pulling over to his pit box. That's going to drop him out of the hunt. But meanwhile, speaking of staying in the hunt, we can see the 55 car here continuing to hold on to P3 for the time being. As they make the way on down the hill here through the crane of curves. Once again, it is the case that with Hendricks out of this fight and not having a happy day since that switch to the Audi here at Donington Park, that to be fair, it's only one round. He's still got plenty more rounds to go. We do briefly lose Achatella there, and surely that's not going to be a disconnect. No, he reappears for a brief while. Goodness me, but that was a bit of a heart and mouth moment. But right now, Robert Abrams will be thinking of trying to hold on to the position for P4 and wondering where Achatella is going to rematerialise, as he is having some technical issues in front. But as they make the way through the corner here, it is the case that we see Abrams staying in that P4, but he has got Jerome Virgiles right behind him for company, and it is the case that Virgiles has been unrelenting as they roll the way out to Coppice corner. Too wide as they make the way down the back straight here, and what Abrams at this point, he's going to try and get himself back on that racing line. He just about can, as you can see that Virgiles thinking about the move, but he can't quite make it as they roll the way into the S's this time around. But definitely is the case there. Achatella having some connection issues, and this may present an opportunity to Abrams to go up the inside into Melbourne. He's going to go for it. Can Achatella hold him around the outside here, and will Virgiles try and come through as well? I think Virgiles is going to go for it. In fact, Achatella goes deep into the corner, and I think he's decided that given his connection issues that he's going to yield rather than battle through the uncertainty of what could come. But as they make the way up into Gollard's, well, Achatella giving way to a couple of drivers there, and as they roll the way through Gollard's corner right now, it is the case that Logan McKenzie also finding his one for it. Could of course also be the case that Achatella outbraking himself and going a bit deep into the corner. It may be a mistake on the cards, but regardless, it is the case he loses 3 places and drops to P6. But at the same time, if he's more focused towards the Delta Championship, he won't be too unhappy with the fact that he's still in P6 and his closest Delta rival, Dom Savio, is in P10. A bit further down the road, the gap between the two of them being at 5 seconds. But as they roll the way on down the hill and into the old hairpin this time around, it is the case now Robert Abrams finds himself in the driving seat for that final step on what is the overall and also the Alpha podium as they make the way up the hill towards McLean's. And I think it is the case that now in clear air he'll be given an opportunity to let the Velocita shine, as they've only got 6 minutes plus the final lap to go. And as they make the way up into Coppice, you can see it's Virgiles, McKenzie, and then Achatella, then Schink, followed by Shepka, all in this run of cars. What is 6 cars all running after the one position of P3, all staying in the fight, and do not count out Gurkan Demir either in P9 nor Dom Savio in P10. They could be outsiders in this fight, and Aaron Lara as well, P11, as meanwhile further behind in that battle for the final step on what is the Delta podium in the battle for P12. We've got Auguste Blondel leading this battle, but here is Eric Statzer behind him, staying with him in P13 as they roll the way into the S's this time around. As they come on through, one of the questions you may also have is what's happening right at the front of the field. We haven't talked really about James Carr for a long period of time. Well, right now, here is your race leader in the 19 car, and the breakfast or dinner driver is just running away with proceedings. It is the case he has opened that gap up to John Lauzon to 6.5 seconds. Here is John Lauzon by comparison, the Beaver Buzz driver, and right now these two are having a quiet race of it. I think they may have mutually agreed to settle it for 1 and 2, and instead now the focus is on just getting to the end, as meanwhile Robert Abrams does not have that luxury of having peace and quiet out on circuit. Instead, he has got to try and hold on to P3 to the finish. He hasn't got long to go, 4 laps including this one if my mental maths does fit correctly, but it is the case they roll the way down the hill. It is the case that Abrams right now has got it all to do. To be fair, he's not got long to go, and if he can hold on to this, I think he'll be very pleased with the P3 in the sprint feature. You see Achatella there taking it to the grass on the exit of the old hairpin. That's an off track, and it will mean now that Schink will have a potential move in the run up towards what be McLean's, as we're hearing that Spencer Cockaine's into the pit lane. I think that may be for a drive-through penalty for a ×9 instant count limit. And as we see Achitella here on the outside, we do have Shink up the inside into Coppy's corner. They roll the way through the right-hander, and as they do, it is the case Shep will be trying to come through as well. Now, can he find the momentum down the back straight? Of course, the Honda's weakness is the fact it just does not have the straight line speed. It's reliant on you carrying the speed from corner to corner, and as they make the way into the S's right now, Shepka not able to capitalise on the situation, but here he might as they come out the S's. He'll have the brakes on the guy. He's got the strongest brakes out of all of them, and as they make the way down into Melbourne, it looks so instead Shink's trying to cover off the inside there versus a potential counter-attack from what is Achitella, and at the same time potentially trying to block off Shepka from going for the 2-for-1 pass. As they make the way now and now up towards the final corner, we can see at the head of this pack, it is the case Robert Abrams going a little bit deep there into the corner, and this is going to give Pajulas the opportunity to power out on exit, but he has to tuck in behind as they make the way up towards turn number 1. And we ride on board here with the second of the 2 yellow flag motorsports drivers, Logan McKenzie, who right now in the popcorn seat view gets to watch this battle in front and try and get his way into the mix. As we see there, Pajulas trying to guard the inside, but it's not worked, and as they make the way in towards the crane of curves, it's Pajulas on the right and McKenzie trying to squeeze himself into the mix in, not able to, but McKenzie definitely recognising right now there's an opportunity here to make it a P3, P4 for Yellow Flag Motorsports, with his teammate right now really trying to hold on to that P3 position, and McKenzie, well, he has a bit of a slow run there through the old hairpin, but I think he's trying to set himself up for a run all the way to McLean's corner. Should there be a mistake at all from Pajulas? But the thing with Jerome Pajulas is when he's in the zone, he just doesn't make mistakes, and to be fair, he has been absolutely faultless in this race so far. As they make the way up towards Coppy's corner, you can see that Abrams able to stay clear for now as they roll the way into the long right-hander at turn number 8, and as they come through and now onto the back straight, in this case Pajulas makes a small error there, just goes a little bit deep through the apex, and that cost him a bit of speed in the run down towards the S's. But as McKenzie takes a look, not close enough to go for the move this time. He's running out of time as McKenzie, however, given the fact they've only got 2.5 minutes left on the clock. As they roll the way on through, we look from them, it's a bit further down the order, and here is Eric Statzer trying to hold off Micah Hendricks, who's coming on through, and we're hearing that Auguste Blondel has been passed, in fact, by Eric Statzer and also Micah Hendricks. Now, that has not happened on camera, it's happened off camera. We're not exactly sure what's happened, but meanwhile, it is the oh, goodness me, and this is Achitella off circuit, and we're hearing there's been an incident involving both him and also, I believe it's Shepka. Now, we're not sure what's happened, but that is not good news for Achitella, in the fact that it is the case that he drops all the way down to P15, and now it's Dom Savio who in P8 finds himself leading in the Delta class as Shepka's into the pits, I presume to some repair work to the car, and I would imagine that Achitella may be into the pits as well as they all roll their way through onto another lap. And as they come through turn number 1 here, Dom Savio now in a rare position to find himself inside the top 10 and leading the class as he makes his way down the hill. Not long to go. I think right now there might be a small grin popping onto his face as we are hearing, and I can see out my commentary box window, indeed it is the case that our Delta Championship leader is into the pit lane, and right now it is the case they're doing some repair work to the machine. But as they roll the way on through right now and up the hill towards McLean's corner, it is the case that Dom Savio doing everything he can now to just bring home this P8 and not lose any more positions, because there's been some major points and some great ground in the championship versus his rivals. But meanwhile, a bit further back, Eric Statzer here, he was passed only moments ago by Micah Hendricks, and right now trying to hold off Auguste Blondel for the remainder of this race. 1 minute to go and one more lap after this one, as meanwhile our race leader is already making his way up towards the final corner, and it is the case we will see 19 laps here in the final race of the day at Donington Park. But meanwhile, we look from them in the outside the top 10 to the battle for P3, and it is the scramble into the Melbourne hairpin, and Robert Abrams trying to hold on for dear life for that P3. And it's the case that Jerome Pajulas rides on the back of him every corner, every braking zone, and Abrams just finding a way to stay ahead as our leaders have gone on to the final lap, and Abrams is about to go on to the final lap himself, 30 seconds before the 30-minute timer is complete. And as they roll the way on out of the corner now and up towards turn number 1, can Abrams hold on one more time, or will it be Jerome Pajulas who ends up on the podium, or could it be Logan McKenzie here? He'll want Yellow Flag Motorsports to make it a P3, P4, much like Abrams. How can they work together potentially to force out Pajulas right at the end as they make make their way down through the crane of curves. Well, right now, no change between these three as they make their way on down the hill and into the old hairpin. But as they roll the way through turn number 4 and heading up the hill towards McLean's right now, in this case, they have to be absolutely precise with each and every corner, knowing how much width they can take before ending up on the grass, carry the speed up the hill, and Robert Abrams doing it very well so far, just rolling the car through the right-hander here and keeping it nicely together. He's setting himself up well, not too many more corners to go where we might see Bajulas be able to gain the ground. This is the key one, Coppice, as Abrams goes a little bit deep there, and this could be the opportunity for Bajulas to go on the offensive. He's literally within the 10th as they make the way down the back straight here, and Abrams is going to have to defend, and Bajulas is trying to make it so he's got as much width as possible on that outside line, but Abrams here on the inside, it's going to be very tight. There's contact between the two of them, and as they make the way out the corner, it's a drag race down towards where's the penultimate corner as they head on down, and Abrams on the outside here and Bajulas out the inside, but as they roll the way through, Bajulas gets it done, or does he, and Abrams comes on back, but we must cut away for here is your race winner, ladies and gentlemen. In race number 3, James Carr from Breakfast for Dinner takes the win ahead of John Lauzon, who comes on home P2. A brilliant drive from the pair of them, and then who will it be? Come the checkered flag for P3. Here they come to the line. There's a knock to the doors, and is it Robert Abrams or Jerome Bajulas? I think it's Abrams just about by a hair's whip ahead of Jerome Bajulas P4, Logan McKenzie P5, and then it'll be Francois Schenk P6, followed by Gurkan Demir P7. Dom Serio P8 takes the win in the Delta class, and it's Aaron Lahr P9 ahead of Micah Hendricks P10. It'll then be Eric Statzer P11, Auguste Blondel P12, and they will complete with the Delta podium. Paul Mikolajczyk in the end at P13. Best of the rest inside the Delta class outside of the podium places. Connor Achatella in the end will come on through and to take what is P14 in a difficult way to wrap up what has been a great day for him up to this point at the Donington Park circuit. It'll then be Matt Shepka P15. Jesse Badders will come on home shortly for P16 as he makes his way up towards the final corner, and as he rolls his way through right now, pipping Spencer Cockayne to the line for that P16 position as he rolls his way on out, and as he comes to that line, it'll be him P16, followed by what is Spencer Cockayne P17, and in our last driver to finish on the lead lap, it will be Fernando Takahashi here as he gradually makes his way on around, and as he does, we had the retirees, of course, of Daniel Smith, David Bauer and Jermaine Warren not making it to the grid, but otherwise it was the case 20 drivers took to the grid in the end, and 18 have made it to the checkered flag as Fernando Takahashi completes proceedings here, coming out of the final corner in the 998 car to take the P18 position. But congratulations to all of our drivers, of course, and it is the case that we do want to take a look back at that battle right at the end between Jerome Bajulas and Robert Abrams. Well, here it is, ladies and gentlemen, as we do take a look, and well, how close was this between the two of them? They made their way into the Melbourne hairpin. We had to cut away to make sure we saw our race win across the line, but as they rolled the round out, you could see the cutback move there from Robert Abrams to give him the run up towards what was Gollard's corner, but it was almost three wide. McKenzie not having the run into the hairpin, but here Bajulas was on that inside line, and Abrams hanging it all the way round the outside, and as they made the way to the line, the Veloster just having the grunt in the end to get his nose ahead and take that P3 on the podium. My voice almost going there given the amount of racing we've seen today. A brilliant race in action between all of them, and what a fantastic race, no doubt about that, to wrap up our proceedings at Donington Park. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is the case that with all the racing, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and well, if you have enjoyed today's broadcast, and if you've joined the racing you've seen, and you perhaps you're sat there in what is your sofa seat right now, indeed your office chair, and thinking that you want to know more about the Alpha Touring change and potentially how you can get onto the grid for either the remainder of Season 5 or Season 6, we're definitely going to have a Season 6, I can promise you that. It is the case, you can always go to our website to find out more, and that is alphatouringchange.wordpress.com. Alternatively, if you're more of a Discord inclined person, you'd like to go straight to the source, you can see the invite link there, and of course you can chat directly with the organisers and also the participants and find out what's going on within the Alpha Touring Change community. But of course we won't have the updated standings today from round number 8. There's a lot of stewarding work still going on and points calculations to go, but it is the case we'll give you an update and all that and more next time, as it will be round number 9 in a week's time. The racing will happen tomorrow as on Monday the 5th of September. We'll be bringing you all the racing action as if it were live on Sunday the 11th of September, and of course it will be our final round before we go into the mid-season break, and it will be a feature race round. Who can come out on top, or so we should say an alpha round, and who can come out on bottom top at the Brazilian circuit. We'll have to wait and see, but I can promise you one thing, it is a circuit where we'll definitely see plenty of battle in action, for it is the case. The Sao Paulo circuit is no stranger to danger when it comes to battles up and down the field. But with that, we have been the AlphaTouring Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit. And if you don't mind me, I'm going to go grab a glass of water, but at the same time, I bid you all a great rest of your weekend. And please remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.